13.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody. What's going on? It's Wednesday night. Here we are with this magical, kind of pre-Halloween-y kind of show.
Yeah.
Although I guess next Wednesday's show is going to be like actual Halloween Eve. So
Right.
I'm going to have to do a costume and everything.
Which means I have to do one.
Well, you don't have to, but you'll look kind of lame if I... Just saying.
Oh,
Not trying to guilt you into it.
I'm going to have to pull
like
Bane out again.
Yeah, you might have to.
Yeah.
Because I have several costumes that I could pick from. Although, I did buy a couple new accessories, but I'm using stuff I already have. But I'm not redoing a costume I already did. Because last year I did Amy from Fright Night, and I had done that like several years prior. But I still had all the stuff, so... And I couldn't afford to get more shit. But, you know what I mean. You'll see what it is, like, when the time comes. But so this was actually a recommendation by one of y'all. Can't remember who it was, but this is actually a good recommendation because I probably never would have thought of doing this show on my own. But it's kind of an interesting thing, and like I said, it's sort of good in the lead up to Halloween because even though Walpurgis Night, if you want to call it that, is not in, it's actually in April. It's April 30th. It is mostly celebrated by neo-pagans today as a second Halloween. You know what I mean? Like, which I see, that just goes to show, man, that like in Germany and Scandinavia and stuff where this is a big thing that they do, I was just kind of like, why, they're way more fun than us, because like, why don't we have a second Halloween? We need more Halloween.
Yeah.
Like one in the springtime, that would be fucking rad.
Well, we just add more holidays to the calendar. We'll just name it something else, you know.
We'll just name it something else.
Yeah. You know.
I mean, well, yeah, but I mean, the thing about this holiday is that it kind of, much like a lot of these kind of holidays, like Christmas and Easter and everything like that, it started out as a pagan thing, and then got co-opted by Christianity, like, later on. And, the name of it actually comes from the Christianized version, as we'll talk about later, but the celebration of it is mostly still tied to the pagan stuff.
Okay.
I kind of feel like the more Halloween similar stuff is sort of more recent, but I don't know. A lot of the stuff was still going on like back in the celebrations, like in ancient times. So it's not like coming out of left field or anything like that. But yeah, this was like a pretty interesting topic. So, like I said, yeah, summer Halloween would be awesome. But see, that's what I mean. It's just kind of like this. Like I said, this would be spring Halloween. It's because it's like halfway in between, and I thought that would be like really cool. But
What if there's a Halloween every month?
I mean, that would be fine.
All right.
I would be broke because I'd be like,
Yeah.
I need a new costume for every
Yeah.
monthly Halloween. I don't know. I kind of think that too. It's like, I love Halloween so much, and I don't know if it would like ruin it or dilute it. If it was, yeah, but twice a year, that seems good. That seems good though. I mean, that seems like just the right amount.
Near each other?
No, I kind of, like I said, I think that we, as they do in Scandinavia and Germany, we should celebrate Walpurgis Night
All right.
on April 30th / May 1st as second Halloween. Because
Okay.
that's what they do.
All right.
So, and it's very similar. Like, they celebrate it, like, kind of similar.
Okay.
But so, like I said, it'd be like halfway in between. So then you have to wait all fucking year for Halloween, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have another thing to look forward to. And there's fuck all to look forward to in the spring, really. I mean, for me at least. It's like Easter. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then summer's coming, and it's hot as balls, and it's just kind of like going to be depressing for months and months until the good holidays come
Speaking
up.
hot as balls, man.
All the good holidays are at the end of the year.
Car's got a fucking AC leak. I gotta find that leak, fix it. I fucking hate dealing with AC.
Yeah. He's all
Yeah, I'm pissed about it.
pissed.
It's okay. I can get everything I need for that for about $250. It's just doing it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
better than taking it to the shop and then being like, "Hey, that'll be $3,000."
Yeah,
please.
$2,000 easily.
You know, I mean, mostly.
At least it's cooled off.
Yeah.
Not working in the summer underneath that damn car.
Yeah, you could die. You know.
Yeah.
Mango says this time next week will be Halloween in the UK. Well, yeah, it'll be Halloween here too on Thursday. And Phantom says rock those goggles you got, Tom, and you could go as Vin Diesel from Pitch Black.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't even be that hard to do. You probably have an outfit like
I think
that.
I think I have the clothes to pull that off.
Yeah, I
already.
think you have a shirt like very similar.
But I got to shave my beard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's. Unless you could like put cake makeup over it or something like that.
Yeah. Cut it really fucking short.
Yeah.
So it'll be back in a couple days anyway.
Yeah, I mean it is short. It would grow back in like a pretty short amount of time, but.
I don't know, man. I got a fucking cool bag costume that I won from last year. Nobody got to see it.
Yeah,
word to the club, and only like fucking 15 people showed up.
Yeah, did we even go? Yeah, did we go to the club last year?
Yeah, Barbarella's.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because I did wear that. I did wear that out, and not a lot of people showed up.
Yeah, and not many people showed up.
Now the year before that, we went to Mannequins because I dressed as Medusa.
It was packed.
And it was packed.
Mannequins is a better Halloween.
Yeah, although
it's open to the public.
It's so crowded that you can't
hardly do.
You can't hardly move, which that's its own like not fun. Yeah, Janet said, "Oh, and thank you very much, Janet, for joining the YouTube membership thing. Welcome to Flashbulbs. I just saw that little thing because that's what I call it, Flashbulbs.
Yeah,
there's only one tier, but yeah, so you guys can be a member too if you are not. It's very cheap." Buy-in. I think it's $2.99. I don't remember. Let's see. Janet says, she just said something wrong. My grandparents immigrated from Sweden and Denmark, so we didn't get to trick or treat. I let my kids go wild. Yeah, and it's interested. May 1st is fun. Now, because I watched a bunch of videos of people from Germany and Finland and stuff like that explaining to people like what Walpurgis Night was, and apparently it's kind of a big deal. Like it's a big holiday. Like I don't know if it's quite as big as Halloween or if it's just as big as Halloween, but the way they were talking about it, they were like, yeah, like most people celebrate it, so it's apparently like a big thing. So that's what I'm saying. We totally need that in the springtime, I think. But and I'm not sure. I think it's mostly the Germanic countries and Scandinavian countries that celebrate it. I'm not sure about. I don't think they celebrate in like Eastern Europe or nothing like that, but yeah, like again, it's kind of a combo of pagan and Christian shit, just like Easter and Christmas and all that kind of stuff. Titanic Discussions says, "Greetings, Tom and Jenny. I just sent you $30 on PayPal for all the great shows. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Pizza on me. Well, thank you very much. That is very nice of you." Tom just made pizza this evening. Actually.
Made 2 instant pizzas.
Instant pizzas.
Yeah. I didn't have any pizza sauce, but I had a jar of pre-made, which is fucking crappy. Pre-made fucking Alfredo sauce.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any crust, but I had some fucking flour tortillas. So I made some white pizzas, pepperoni
on thin crust.
On a thin crust. Put them on a tray. Put them in the basically the air fryer, basically. Yeah. But I had them in there on fucking pizza setting. They came out good.
That like a little thin like crust. Surprisingly, very, very good.
Yeah.
With the Alfredo sauce on it.
Yeah,
it had like turkey bacon and like green peppers from the garden.
Yours did. I had pepperoni on mine.
Oh well, I can't eat pepperoni like
you can't eat pepperoni, so I didn't give you that.
So I can, but
it tears up your stomach.
I'll regret it later.
Yeah.
Really bad heartburn. Mango says Halloween 2 is a good movie, and also All Saints is the day after Halloween. Yeah, that's right. November 1st is All Saints Day. Robert Walsh said Halloween comes from Ireland. Just saying, pretty sure. Anyway, someone will correct me. Just don't use Wikipedia as your answer. The crap they try to tell you as the truth is laughable. Yeah, I mean, I think most people in the United States, if they know anything about Halloween, know that it came from Ireland, like with Irish immigrants. That's where a lot of the stuff comes from.
I think it was based on Samhain, wasn't it?
Yeah, because that's when that was the same day, on the pagan calendar.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, Walpurgis Night is kind of a similar kind of thing where it's kind of like a balance of that time of the year when, the veil between the living and dead is really thin and like ghosts can pass in between, like freely. So
your ancestors come and visit you.
Yeah, and also asshole ghosts also come out and you have to fend them off. But some of the ghosts are nice and you want them to come because it's it's your relatives and shit.
They'd set in places for them at the dinner table.
Yeah, similar kind of shit going on. So that's what I'm saying. It's why it's kind of similar. It's like the counterpart to Halloween or to Samhain. You know what I mean? Because they're both at the same time of the year. Because back on the Celtic calendar, they had, and I have it written down all the holidays that they celebrated. They have the wheel of the year where it's everything's kind of counterbalanced, you know what I mean? and everything was cyclical. Like they had all the holidays at pretty much equal intervals from each other to celebrate various things, like the turn of the seasons and stuff like that, which is what this kind of is as well. So let me see. CB said I had pizza tonight. My cat tried to steal it. Yeah, our cats don't like human food for some reason. Like you try to give them some and they just look at you like, what the fuck is this? Why you guys eat this? Yuck.
Yeah, I gave Pookie a little bit of chicken.
Yeah.
She ate a little bit.
But I mean, chicken's meat.
Then she asked for more, and I gave her a little bit more. And she ate a little bit of that, but she didn't like it as much. So I put another little piece out, and she's like, nah.
That's got people cooties on it.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that she would eat... Now, Beijing will eat cheese, like Parmesan.
Yeah, she loves Parmesan cheese.
She loves Parmesan cheese. I think that's pretty much the only human food. And Pookie will eat whipped cream, which isn't really food, but you know what I mean? She'll eat that. Like if you have ice cream or something with whipped cream on it, she's like, "Hey, can I have some?"
Yeah.
And she'll lick it off your finger. But she doesn't really eat. You try to give her human food, if you give her like a peanut or something, she'll just lick it, and then be like, "Eh."
Yeah.
She's not enthused. All she wants is those tuna meat sticks.
Yeah.
She fucking lives on those. And Temptations.
Yeah.
Of any flavor, so she doesn't even care what flavor they are. I think she likes some better than others, but
she can't tell us.
Yeah, she can't tell us. She knows the colors of the boxes, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She'll go up and push a box.
Yeah, because if we have more than one flavor, like, she'll pull out the one she wants.
Yeah. She knows there's the green ones and the red ones and the yellow ones.
Yeah, and the pink ones or whatever. Yeah. And she's just like, oh, this one. Put this one on the plate, please. So it's like, it's really funny. I'm sure she can probably smell it, too. But yeah, but again, thank you very much, Titanic Discussions, for the PayPal donation. And for all the great shows. Thank you very much. I mean, we try. You know what I mean. Let's see. Phantom said, at the end of the film, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which I don't think I've seen that, actually. I should probably watch that. All the witches gather on a mountaintop, just like this show's description, just saying it's a really good film, and there needs to be a sequel. Yeah, that's kind of like, all the witches gathering on the mountain. That's kind of a Walpurgis Night thing. Well, the weird thing about it is that I kind of feel like it's sort of, at least by modern pagans, it's celebrated kind of like as a Halloween thing. But back in the day, it was kind of anti-witch. You know what I mean? It was kind of like still seen as like, witches being evil and we're going to fend them off.
Yeah.
Type of thing. And they would, burn witches in effigy. And they still kind of do that nowadays, even though people aren't like anti-witch like they used to be, obviously. But there's still like very much of that old hag witch iconography going along with these celebrations. So even in modern day, I think they do still like burn witch effigies and stuff like of that nature. So yeah, so you want to get started on this? This will probably be good because you know a lot about the history of religion and Christianity and stuff. So you can probably like,
I'll chime in
on various points, and you know a little bit about this too about the pagan holidays. So yeah, so Walpurgis Night, or Walpurgis Nacht, if you're German, which I'm not, is actually celebrated on April 30th. So it's the eve of May Day, or on the Celtic calendar, Beltane, which is May 1st. And as I said, in the modern day, in various European, Scandinavian countries, they still celebrate this, but the modern celebration is kind of a combination of the original pagan celebrations, particularly of Beltane, because that was usually kind of like a 2-day thing. And these have kind of become crossbred with some Christian aspects, which have to do with the canonization of a Christian saint named Saint Walpurga, which is quite a name. She actually died in 777. And so we'll talk a little bit about her later on. But that's who the holiday is named after. So the whole point of this holiday is rebirth, renewal. You know what I mean? It's like winter is over, spring and summer are coming, here comes the hot weather, hooray, like all that other kind of stuff. Just like Halloween and those kind of festivals where, oh no, here comes the cold weather, we better batten down the hatches or whatever. It's a similar kind of thing. One thing too that is very much kind of an aspect of Walpurgis Night is getting rid of all the dark energies from the previous year. And usually what they'll do, and I've seen this done in other types of festivals as well, but where they'll like write down all their grievances, like on all the shit that sucked this year, and then they throw it into a bonfire, like saying, fuck all that, you know what I mean? Like saying that it's going to be better, like as the new year comes in, like as the warmer weather comes. So when this happened, and I'll get like a little bit more, this is kind of like just the summary, and then we'll get more into the details like later on. But Beltane and May Day, like Beltane is Celtic and May Day was more like a Germanic thing. They kind of merged together at some point because obviously, you know, they're around the same time. And then at some point after 870, it started to become Christianized. And at that point, right around then was when it was named after Walpurga, like Saint Walpurga. The weird thing about her is that despite that name, she's actually British, and she was a Christian missionary. And interestingly, because of she was supposed to be like this big healer, like she could heal people like with miracles and shit like that, because obviously she's canonized, so she had to have done miracles and stuff. But her big thing was she was supposedly really good at counteracting witch spells. Which I guess it's really easy to be good at something that doesn't exist.
Well, they call her in, she de-witchified it.
Yeah. Let me de-witchify this shit.
She put a curse on me. Okay, I took care of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There. It's fixed.
Yeah.
Man, it was just easy to make a living back then.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, all you had to do was wave your hands and say some, like, Latin sounding shit and be like, oh, thank you very much, here. Like, they give you a big bag of gold or whatever. So
it was a thing back then.
It was a thing.
For a long time.
It's just kind of like, oh, that's just so funny to me. And it's so funny to me that somebody could be like canonized and stuff like that, and their whole thing is, oh, she healed people from witchcraft, and I'm just kind of like, okay, so you know what I mean?
It was a whole different system.
They believed it back then, I guess.
The way they were educated.
So that's yeah, they're like, yeah, that's totally a thing that exists.
Yeah.
But now interestingly, you know what they did. The reason why they named the day after Walpurga was not because she died on that date or anything like that. It was because, well, two reasons. The justification they gave for why they moved her date to, like, why her day is that day, is that they actually, you know, about almost 100 years after she died, they actually moved all her saint relics, you know, like you have. They moved them from where her initial abbey was, where they were at her abbey, which was in Heidenheim. And they moved it to another city. They moved it to Eichstätt. And they moved them on May the 1st, 870. So that was the day. But the thing about it is that, and most scholars that have looked into this, has said, well, probably, as Christians were wont to do at around this time, they probably specifically wanted to make it May 1st because of the pagan celebrations of May Day / Beltane, and they wanted to Christianize the holiday. Like, it didn't happen immediately, obviously. It didn't happen by fiat. It was just kind of like they were just slowly trying to insidiously Christianize all the pagan holidays so that eventually people would see them as Christian holidays, which, like I said, is the same thing.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, that's the same thing that happened with Easter and Christmas. And even nowadays, you know, at least in the United States, I don't know about other countries, but there are a lot of people that still think Easter and Christmas are Christian holidays, which they didn't start out as. They just became Christian, associated with that later on. And that was very deliberate. That was what the church was doing when they would move into an area and kind of take over everything. And then they'd be like, oh, well, they have festivals on this day and that day and that day, so let's call this Saint Whoever's Day, and we'll just make it so, oh, well, you guys are having all this dancing and revelry to celebrate Saint Whoever and not fertility or whatever the fuck you were doing before. So it's like, this is kind of what happened.
They didn't want to piss off local people.
Yeah. They're like, you can still do it.
Celebrate. We're going to call it
We just have to say that it's for another reason. You know what I mean?
And over a couple generations.
Then they forgot what the original reasons were and just knew the Christian reasons, which is exactly what happened in, like I said, in Easter and everything. Probably, I kind of feel like Easter more than Christmas.
Easter's definitely fertility.
Oh, big time.
Bunny rabbits, eggs.
Yeah, it's like, why do you think that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that I kind of feel like in this day and age, most people, whether they want to admit it or not, know that Christmas at least started out as a pagan holiday. But I still see a lot more people saying Easter is Christian, but that's just as pagan. And the thing is, Easter, it's not even on the same day every year. It's based on the moon phase. Yeah. Which, like, you can't really get much more pagan than that.
Well, the term pagan is kind of a loaded...
It is,
It's kind of fake, too. In antiquity, fucking anything that was pre-Christian was considered pagan. The Romans were considered pagans.
Yeah.
You know, in the modern era, when you say pagan, it's like, sounds like something, you know, satanic or, you know, something bad.
Yeah.
But no, the pagan holidays were just like the ones we had now. You know, they had Christmas. They just called it something else, and it was a little bit different. But no, the Romans had Christmas, but it was Saturnalius around that same time. It was kind of like a Christmas thing, you know.
It was very similar.
You're right. So
feasting, drinking, presents,
right,
all that kind of stuff.
So it's not like the Christianity or the church is covering up some kind of evil day. That's not what it was. They were just trying to overlay their motif on something that everybody was already doing.
Yeah. Like I said, they're still letting you do the same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a big feast and give presents and stuff.
But remember this guy. And
it's because of Jesus and Saint Nicholas and all this other kind of stuff, not because of, you know, the pagan stuff
on this day
that they were already doing. Yeah.
On Easter Day, you should remember Jesus.
You should always remember
Jesus' death, his crucifixion.
Yeah.
Don't worry about all those bunny rabbits and all those eggs.
What does that have to do?
You know, and then run around maypoles and fertility and have a hot young girls run around trying to get pregnant. Don't worry about that. Let's talk about something important like Jesus dying.
Yeah.
That's what they did there.
They just suck the fun out of everything, don't they?
I don't think it really worked because even to this day you have Easter egg hunts and fucking, you know, and you know, so no.
Yeah, I mean, at least we hung on to that. Yeah, at least you get like chocolate bunnies and shit.
Yeah. So no, I think the pagans kind of won on that one. Very rarely do you see Jesus associated with Easter anymore.
I mean, in churchy places you do.
It's going to be overlaid though. You're going to see both of them.
Yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, I think even like a lot of churches will have like Easter egg hunts and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my god, that's pagan as fuck. But I guess they gotta keep the little kiddies happy.
Bad. It doesn't mean it's bad.
No, I don't mean it in a bad way at all. In fact, I think it has a positive connotation, but you know what I mean.
It was folk religion.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Hello, Brandon has turned up in the chat. I love your streams. I'm a big fan of your podcast. Thank you very much. Says y'all are funny.
Yeah, thank you.
We like to think so.
Yeah.
Phantom said your Terrifier 3 review definitely got a lot of views.
It did?
Did it? I didn't notice either.
Yeah.
I don't usually look at the view count.
We don't look at shit till later.
I forget.
Yeah.
But
I really only check the channel maybe like once every month or so.
Yeah. I just forget to look at like the numbers. Every now and then like I'll notice it, but
we're easy to find on fucking social media. So if you got anything important to say to us, you can drop us a direct message.
And the thing is, it's like we're on all the time too, so it's like we have a lot of shows out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We've done so many recorded reviews and we still stream 3 times a week. And
somebody told me that they grew up with us.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, they went through all school listening to us.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true because we started.
Weird, yeah.
We started back in 2016.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been on a long time. We haven't done back when we started, we just did 1 show a week.
Yeah, when you're a teenager, 10 years is a lifetime.
Yeah.
To us, 10 years, I can sleep for 10 years. Fuck it.
Oh, I know you could. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
He'd just be like, he'd wake up every now and then to go to the bathroom and be like, all right, good night.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do power sleeping.
I wish I could do that.
I can will myself back to sleep.
No although one of the good things about getting older is I guess people in general, and me in particular, I feel like I need less sleep. Like, even if I just get like 4 or 5 hours, I'm kind of tired, but I don't really feel that bad like the next day. You know what I mean? I'm not like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, because I feel like when I was younger,
when you were a teenager,
if I didn't get enough sleep, I'd be like, like all day the next day, I'm just like, I'm gonna die. But like now, I'm just like, I'm alright.
Yeah,
I'll just have an extra cup of coffee.
It has something to do with brain development.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess you need a lot, because teenagers, like, man,
they get a lot of fucking
sleep.
They
will just sleep all the time, but they need to. I mean, that's what they're
Yeah.
supposed to. You know. Yeah, CB said the people back then still burned women at the stake for witchcraft. Yeah, they fucking did.
Yeah, but you know, that's
witchcraft.
something you can't really generalize, though, about the Europeans during any of these periods. That shit went on for a long time. It was touch and go, and it was always popping up in different places. It was like a little a local fad. It would happen. There were some places where they fucking basically killed all the women.
Yeah.
You know.
Good job, people.
They took that shit too.
Real forward thinking there.
Yeah, they took that shit too far.
Well, they took it. There's no such thing as too far when you're just like burning innocent people at the stake.
There were moral panics.
Oh yeah.
And you know, shit happens today. There's moral panicking going on all the fucking time.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a very human.
Yeah. And
it makes me sad that people still fall for it, but they still.
It's something about human nature and fucking the nature of fucking mob psychology. That's why you do not want whatever the mob is doing. That's not what you want to do. No. Fucking, they're like lemmings. They'll run right over off a fucking cliff. But it depends on exactly what it is I'm talking about. But,
well, yeah, I mean,
some things you can go, yeah, you know, let's not blow up the moon, you know, would not be a good idea. They thought about it. You remember that? Yeah, that was when the fucking U.S. Air Force decided that as a demonstration of power, they were going to do a nuclear strike on the surface of the moon so the Soviets could see it.
I remember vaguely hearing something about that until like at least a couple smart people were like, can we not? Let's not do that.
Don't blow up the moon.
Let's not do that. That would be a very, very bad idea.
Yeah.
Just for A, B, and C reasons. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
The reason the fact that would even...
we had men running shit, though. That's freaking awesome.
And,
well, they had other men...
that was back when we had men running shit.
But you had other men tell them not to do it. But you know what I mean? That was just even coming up
with I'm sure women told them not to do it too, but they didn't listen to them.
No, they wouldn't listen to them. They were listening to other men. But I'm saying...
So the women would be like, they would go tell the man that's like, well, go tell him that is the stupidest shit ever. And then they listen to the man.
They had nuclear weaponry.
They wouldn't listen to her.
Fucking slide rules. A lot of intelligence and fucking a lot of testosterone.
We can blow up the moon.
Yeah. Let's show these fucking commies what we can do. They're going to see them fucking things go off on the fucking surface of the moon.
That is one of
the most fuck with us.
Idiotic things that I've ever heard.
They were going to do it.
Life.
They were going to do it. It was just it was going to be a demonstration of prowess that we could even strike the moon.
It's an interplanetary dick slinging contest.
Yeah.
And one of the stupidest
and then you
things
said,
ever.
Top that, Rooskies. Top that.
Cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, it was fucking definitely a dick fucking competition.
Well, yeah.
Between two groups of men on the other side of the planet. Who could do the fucking...
Meanwhile, women
who could be the most impressive?
Shaking their fucking heads.
Yeah.
Like,
I appreciate their...
Here we go.
I appreciate their bravado.
Nonsense.
I appreciate their bravado.
Fucking idiots. But yeah. Like I said, I'm glad that...
The thing is it would take a lot of intelligence to be that kind of an idiot.
I don't know if that's true.
They had all that math you had to do. They didn't even have computers.
Oh, I know that.
They fucking had to do that shit with a slide rule just fucking in their head and write it down and to fucking figure out the orbits and shit and where it was all going to land. You'd be real smart to be that dumb.
Now I want to write a short story called I Blew Up the Moon with a Slide Rule.
Yeah, they did shit with a slide rule.
With nothing but a slide rule.
Slide rule and testosterone.
Maybe that's too long.
That's all in it. Slide rule and IQ and testosterone. That was it.
Okay, that's way too long. Yeah. But I do like the addition of testosterone.
Yeah, testosterone.
I blew up the moon with a slide rule and testosterone.
Yeah,
that has a certain ring to it.
Yeah. It wouldn't have blown up the moon, but it would have looked cool. It would have looked cool.
It would have blown up. Oh my god.
Fucking shit hits that moon all the time and goes fucking atomic.
Yeah, it's true.
Nuclear implosions, you know. So they weren't that dumb.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
They were just a little bit dumb.
They were crazy. They weren't dumb. They were fucking crazy. They were trying to fucking brag. Because, you know, if you guys don't know it, fucking meteors fucking hit all the time and they go nuclear.
Yeah.
You know, when they're coming in, when they hit.
In a way, we're kind of lucky that the moon is there because it takes a lot of hits that probably we would have gotten.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We would have added some craters to that bitch.
It's taken some fucking... Taking one for the team.
We would have spread them shit out and the craters would have spelled out USA. That's how I would have done it. That's how I would have done that
with
shit.
A big screaming eagle.
Yeah. Like that. Top that, Ruskies. God damn.
So you could like see it from... So you could see it like on the surface of the moon from Earth.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't even need a telescope or
nothing. You had to be, you know, fucking... I was born in the wrong era. I should have been alive back in the 50s.
You would have fit right in.
I would have fit right in the 50s.
You got to get a little pocket protector.
Yeah.
Put you some little glasses
on. It was like my granddad.
Yeah.
My granddad was like that. He worked for fucking
And you'd have said that like in the NASA like control room or whatever. And it was like, yes, that is a brilliant idea, Tom. And they totally would have like, go figure that out, do that.
My granddad was a defense contractor, aerospace engineer. Worked for Grumman Aerospace, fucking Lockheed Martin. He worked for General Atomics on the fucking nuclear rocket fucking program. Nuclear external combustion engine rocket. Was that shit called Project Orion? Yeah, that was a badass shit. Only a man could do that. They were gonna leave the Earth's gravitational field, fucking riding on a fucking wave of nuclear plasma as they were throwing atomic bombs out of the bottom of the thing. The engine was just a big Coke bottle machine. That's all it was. Throwing fucking atomic bombs out the back. They were about the size of a soup can or a can of, about the size of a can of tuna. Yeah, just throw 3 of them out a second. Just take off. You could get to Saturn in a couple months, or no, Jupiter in a couple months. That's how fast it would go. And you have gravity the whole way, because your rate of acceleration would give 1g. And if you got halfway there, you flip it around backwards and fucking continued to fucking thrust to slow down the other half of the way, or you'd pass it. And you got 1g doing that too. So they had gravity. They would have gravity the whole time. Some badass shit with no computers.
Yeah, they figured some shit out.
And we're gonna do it on paper and pencil.
But now these are all the same people that absolutely can't figure out how computers work nowadays. Yeah. They can't even work a fucking kiosk.
They're dead.
McDonald's.
They're dead. Yeah.
So you know what I mean.
That was my grandfather's generation. They're dead.
You know, not much of a flex. Yeah. Victor says Jesus is a Capricorn. That's right. And then he says, I listened to y'all when I was in nursing school in 2017. Yeah. I was delivering pizza on the weekends. See, yeah. I know. Like I said, that was just like a year after we started.
Yeah, I like hearing that kind of shit, though. At least we're having an effect on people on a personal level.
Well, that kind of, I mean, I know
I did the same thing.
I know it's cheesy, but like it makes me kind of feel good, you know, because there's other YouTube channels and like I've been watching them for years and years, like, you know, like beer and board games and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like this. There's something like really comforting about just hanging out.
Yeah.
And like watching them being like, oh, hey, they put a new thing up. And it's like, let's watch them. And you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. That and Jade the Libra, I like her a lot. Or her Halloween shopping.
My main influences really are Art Bell and Howard Stern. Even though, you know, Art's gone and Howard Stern's, he's irrelevant now. He didn't make the fucking transition into online, you know. Guess the money wasn't there for him. But, you know, I kind of liked that. Where you'd listen to somebody that's familiar, you'd hear them all the time.
Yeah.
You know. It'd be nice. We kind of have a show kind of like fucking Coast to Coast with Art Bell. Oh, he had guests on though. That's what made it different.
Which we did that a few times, but I was like,
fucking hassle.
It's such a hassle, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. We kind of evolved into being a show that was more just like a hangout kind of show. I like that better. It's a lot less stress. Like when we have guests,
day jobs, man.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like if I did this full time, it might be different, but it's just kind of like when you have a guest on, it's like I have to think of like all these questions to ask them and, you know, research all the stuff. The
technical aspects.
Yeah, and you got to set up all the technical stuff. It's like, you know, I have to research the topics too, but it's like at least I don't have to. And you know, I don't know. I just get kind of weirded out like interviewing people, I guess. So it's just kind of like I would rather just like hang out and have a conversation, you know. CB said, I've been watching your videos since you just had a picture on screen with the serial killer videos. Yeah, we used to just do like a slideshow type situation. But we didn't start doing live streams until episode 200. I mean, we did video prior to that, but we recorded the video, I think. And I don't know, it's been a long time. But we started doing live streams at 200. And like I said, I thought that I would hate it. Because I thought, oh shit, like what if I lose my place in my notes, or what if I do something stupid or say something stupid, and I can't go back and fix it, you know what I mean? But it's like, as time went on, I'm like, oh, this is much better. I like the real time interaction and having you guys to, you know, soundboard off of and stuff like that, like is a lot more fun. I have a lot more fun doing this than recording the videos. And it's weird because recording the videos is kind of more stressful, even though I know that if I fuck up, I can just go back and fix it, you know what I mean? But I don't know why I find that more stressful. It doesn't make any sense, but here we are. So yeah. So where was I? All right. So like I said, in the modern day, Walpurgis Night is celebrated kind of more like a second Halloween because it has a lot of similarities to Halloween or Samhain, which is on October 31st, obviously. And in the sense of having like bonfires, Halloween parties, trick-or-treating type situations, like going door to door, stuff like that. And much like Halloween is, or at least was like in olden times, it's kind of seen as a time when, as I mentioned, the veil between the living and the dead is very thin. And in some ways that's a good thing because you're like, oh, your loved ones who have passed on, like they're supposed to be able to come visit you, so they'll put out food for them and, and talk to them and stuff like that. But there's also evil spirits and spirits that are just generally assholes, and you just want to keep them away. So you have to kind of drive away, which is originally where the idea of dressing up in costume came from. Like, you're supposed to be scaring away the bad spirits, you know what I mean? So in a way, it is very similar to Halloween in that regard. Now, as I said, April 30th, which is now Walpurgis Night, was originally celebrated as part of Beltane, which is on May 1st. It was seen as like Beltane Eve, essentially. And Beltane is Celtic, as I mentioned earlier, and is kind of like a renewal celebration. Like I said, here's, winter's over, here's, spring and summer is here, and the hot weather is here. And so it was seen kind of either as... It was kind of more seen as like, this is the last chance that all these evil spirits will have to like fuck with you before they go dormant again, like in the hot weather, because I guess they can only run around in the cold, which I totally get that. Now here's the cool thing. Beltane Eve in Celtic belief system, the Germanic version of that was actually known, like the night before May Day, was known as Hexennacht, Witch's Night, which I'm like, how fucking rad is that? But the whole thing about that was that witches were supposed to be like super powerful, like on this. Well, I mean, they're powerful anyway, but they're supposed to get like a power up, I guess, like on this particular night. And so because witches were seen as negative in that time period, this was a night when you were supposed to like be extra careful to like keep witches and witchcraft like away from you. And try to keep them from casting spells and whatever. That's where Walpurga later came in. So the thing about it, like I said, it's kind of like in the modern day celebrations, they kind of combine shit. They do bonfires, they do parties where they burn. It's they burn like stuff they don't want, like bad shit that happened in their life or whatever. Like they burn pieces of paper with that, and it's kind of like an all night party kind of thing. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting. I was reading this article about this, and I guess this hadn't really occurred to me in this particular way. But they're like, most of the descriptions of ancient pagan festivals that we have now comes to us from Christian writers from the medieval period. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, I guess they're accurate, but I guess you have to like realize that they're seeing it through a lens of, oh, look at how bad this is. You know what I mean?
And they may not be up to date too. They might be talking about stories that they heard from 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's another thing. That's what I mean. It's like how accurate can they be?
Yeah.
If you're talking about people that you that you don't understand and that you're trying to not wipe out necessarily, but it's a belief system you're kind of trying to wipe out. So you saying that they're doing this, that, and the other, like for this celebration, you're trying to make it sound as bad as possible so that other people read and go, oh my God, how scandalous.
Yeah, and were they contemporary? The people telling these stories?
See, that's what I mean. I kind of feel like maybe not.
Because there's a lot of stuff about the Druids that we believe today. They don't have anything. It's not based in any kind of reality. It was just things that ancient people said about them, but they were 1,000 years removed from them. You know what I mean? So how would they know that type of shit?
Right. That's what I mean. It's just kind of, that's another thing that, and it just in a larger context too, I kind of feel like that's true of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying, oh, you can't trust anything in history, because obviously, shit happened. If there's multiple lines, multiple witnesses that independently like said, yeah, this happened this way, then yeah, you can be pretty sure that happened like pretty much that way. But things like this, like belief systems, where it was, probably, let's just say, like Christian missionaries, for example, going into a particular place that was all quote-unquote pagan beliefs, and they're trying to convert these people. And so they're saying, well, we have this festival where they do this, that, and the other. And like I said, it's kind of to their advantage to make it sound as evil as possible, And I kind of feel like probably most of the shit they were doing was just regular ass shit.
Probably regular shit.
That's what they're just like having a feast and dancing and shit, just like you do at a regular ass party. You know what I mean? It probably wasn't anything
making a snowman,
nefarious.
Making a snowman,
right? So, but I just thought that was really interesting that I saw that brought up, that they were saying, a lot of these, the things that we know nowadays about like a lot of these ancient pagan festivals come from Christian writers, like from the medieval era, where they were describing them when they moved into this area, and they said, hey, they're doing this and that. And
it may not be true.
So it may not be true, or it might be exaggerated, or, especially if I don't know if any of them said this, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But, where it said, oh, they sacrifice babies and they do this and that and the other thing. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like...
Well, there was human sacrifice.
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying there wasn't that. Yeah. I'm just saying that it would be easy for them to embellish. Yeah. Because it's not like anybody could check.
They found people that were executed, perhaps sacrificed, but they don't know the details. They found people down in peat bogs that were strangled to death. They were bound. But, that person might have been executed for a crime. You don't know. Or, but I think the explanation was that it was some kind of sacrifice. But I don't know how they would know that.
See, that's what I mean. You might not know.
How would they know the difference between a sacrifice and an execution? I think a lot of the fucking things about human sacrifice happening in Europe, with all these witches and shit, I think it comes from the Roman times. Because Romans said Germanic tribes practice human sacrifice.
Right.
They just said that. I don't know if there was any proof of it. There may have been. Might have been like the Aztecs, where they sacrifice a few virgins a year, something like that. To honor some god, or they sacrifice somebody to give them good...
Gods love virgins.
Good luck in battle, that type of shit, Going into battle tomorrow, fucking go get somebody, we'll sacrifice them, and that'll pay off the evil spirits.
It's so horrible, but it's like the idea of it is just so funny to me. Like, I know that everybody thought that, so it's like it didn't seem weird to them, but I'm just like, what a weird fucking random thing to think of.
Well, if it was anything like the Aztecs, the sacrifice would have gone kinda, not necessarily willingly, but they would have gone as like part of a religious duty. Because, okay, I'll help you guys, I'll be the one.
All right, kill me.
Yeah, I'll go to heaven. I'll see you guys on the other side.
I can't imagine having that level. Because, humans...
The Aztecs would walk people up to the tops of those temples. They were captured soldiers, other Mayans. And they would go up there knowing that their fucking hearts was going to be cut out.
Yeah.
But they were of the same religions, basically. They knew, well, my sacrifice will help my family back at home. To keep the sun moving, Because they were trying to keep the mechanisms of the fucking universe running. They thought that...
a little arrogant.
They thought humans were made out of blood that came from God. God took his blood and mixed it with clay and made humans. Every time a human was born, blood was being stolen from God. Okay? If problems were happening, it's because God was running low on blood. So you had to give him some of his blood back.
I just had a really funny mental image of God opening his cupboards and there's only one thing of blood or a refrigerator.
Running out of blood.
I kind of feel like refrigerator would be better. He's opening his fridge. He's like, oh shit, there's a little thing of blood, some old mustard and a beer, and that's all that's in there.
Yeah, Mayan warfare wasn't about killing enemies. It was about capturing guys on it. It was almost more like sports. They'd capture a guy from the other team. The other army, they take them back to their temple and sacrifice them in the name of their gods, or the way they would do it. Maybe because you got credit. I guess God gave credit to the city that did the most sacrifices.
Yeah, brownie points.
Yeah, brownie points. They were cheesing. They were cheese dicking to God.
Yeah.
Trying to fucking suck up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brown nosing.
Brown nosers.
God brown nosers.
Yeah. Well, they really thought that if they didn't do this shit, eventually the sun would stop coming up.
Yeah.
The sun would be gone, and that'd be it. And everybody would be in darkness, and the earth would die.
What you were saying before, though, about, and I read about this, too, about, like, Aztec sacrifice, like, willingly going up there, like, knowing what was going to happen to them. And it just occurred to me how powerful religious belief is to overcome human self-preservation, because humans, all animals really, have a natural sense of self-preservation. You don't want to get killed, you don't want to get injured, and you pretty much will do anything to avoid that, and that's natural. So the fact that you can believe in something so strongly that you will willingly cut my heart out. That's incredible.
Intelligence can be a weakness.
That's incredible to me.
Intelligence can be a weakness. Yeah. Because you can be so intelligent, you can rationalize anything. Yeah, okay, I'll die to save the earth, you know. When it's all bullshit.
I mean...
It's not based on anything.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of feel like I don't even know if intelligence is necessarily the factor there.
Sure it is. Because if you were an animal, you would just fight.
Well, no, I'm talking about humans now. I'm just talking about... Honestly, I don't even know. I think it's just more willingness to believe... I think it's more a faith issue.
Yeah, well, it always is.
Which, like I said, that doesn't really have much to do with intelligence. I don't think.
But the thing is that those Aztecs and Mayans that were walking up to the top of them temples had been listening to all their priest class and all their wise men class. It'd be that, you know, and saying that this is how the universe actually works. This is a reality. They fucking totally believed it. That's the same thing as today when their scientists are telling you to believe the science. All right, it's the same fucking thing.
It's not though, because
it is very much the same
scientists have like evidence to back it up, and they did not.
There have been a lot of shitty evidence and crap science.
Sure,
since the
I'm not
beginning
saying
of
that.
Fucking man.
I'm not saying that, but you can't conflate those two things. They're completely different.
No, they're the same.
They're not the same. They're not.
See, Jenny gets very sensitive about.
They're not the same, though. I'm not sensitive. I'm telling you the truth. It's not.
It's the same function. They're rationalizing the universe.
Sure, but like I said, evidence is the difference there. You can say whatever you want. That's why religion and science are 180 degrees out of phase with one another, because religion says if you have faith in it, you'll just believe, you don't need evidence, whereas science says you do need evidence, or, you know, or we're going to blow your shit out of the water.
The ancients believed they had evidence.
Yeah, but they didn't.
But 1,000 years from now, they're going to look back at us saying that we're doing the same thing, that we're just as dumb as them. They're not going to see any difference. They're going to say, they would go, an Aztec would just go, of course this is how the shit works. Why do you think the sun keeps coming up? That's what they would say.
Right, but
if we weren't doing this, that sun would have never come up.
But like they didn't.
And then they would have showed you the calendar and all the fucking Mayan long count calendar and how complicated it was. And they would go, how could this be an accident? Look at the Baktun. You know what I mean? They were the masters of time. I know, but like I said,
they didn't know any better, and it's just kind of like that's all they knew, and it's not like they had other people that could check or anything like that.
This is all we know.
Right, but it's kind of different. It's kind of different nowadays because we're not as isolated as we used to be.
You can use science to justify for a lot of shit. You know, if you're the right kind of personality.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you could go and say, look, 90% of these people don't make a difference in the world. It's really only the top 10% that make a difference. We could get rid of all these people and replace them all with robots, and us top 10%, we'd be much happier, and the world would be a lot more emptier. We wouldn't have to worry about global warming. Why don't we kill all these people off? That's the same thing the fucking mustache man and the commies were the same fucking way. Where they're going to kill off fucking large numbers of people for the benefit of mankind. They always rationalize it that way. It's just something in human nature. And the same thing the Aztecs were doing. We're going to kill off large numbers of people to benefit mankind. You know, or to make God happy. Same shit, same idea.
Side quest hero is here, by the way.
Side quest.
Said, I love the way this channel has developed. It's been really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a good time doing this. And like I said, I think we've got to a point now where this is kind of the most enjoyable way of doing things, even though I thought I would hate it, but you know what I mean? But yeah, so where was I? Okay, so yeah. So as I was talking about before, it's a pretty the way that the church would overtake or at least like overlay their doctrine, I guess, onto already existing pagan beliefs and pagan festivals was not an accident. It was, like I said, it was a slow progression, obviously, and usually it was like generational. Like a couple generations would have to die out, like before they forgot like where the where the origins of that festival or whatever it was came from, and they just thought it was Christian. But it was very deliberate on the church's part. I mean, even Pope Gregory the Great, said as much. Like, and is that's what we should do. Like, when we move into an area, we'll overlay our shit onto their festivals, and like I said, they can still have the celebration. We're just saying it's for a different reason. And like I said, it did work. You know what I mean? Because we still celebrate those holidays nowadays, and a lot of people do still erroneously think that they originated with Christianity, which they did not. So as I mentioned earlier, the whole Celtic calendar was like a cycle, and unlike our modern calendar, it actually started in the autumn. Like, that was New Year's. Essentially, I think Samhain was like New Year's Day. You know what I mean? So it started and ended in fall. Now, in modern paganism, neo-paganism, they call this the Wheel of the Year, and there's kind of like a little, diagram of it and everything like that. That is accurate as far as when they celebrated things, but they didn't have that exact calendar. That calendar actually originates from, kind of the 19th century, and the 1800s, 1835. Jacob Grimm kind of made that. And so I kind of feel like a lot of neo-pagans use that calendar, you know what I mean? But they're pretty sure that all of these were celebrated when they said they were, which is, like I said, Samhain was same as Halloween, October 31st. Then you had Yule, obviously, which was 5 days, the 20th to the 25th of December. And then you had in early February, like 1st and 2nd of February, you had Imbolc. And the 20th to the 23rd of March, you had Ostara, which is, Easter, essentially, like spring equinox. Then you had Beltane, which is kind of what we're talking about now, April 30th to 1st of May, which is where Walpurgis Night is. Then you had something called Litha. That was the 20th to the 22nd of June. And then in August, like the 1st of August, you had Lugnasad. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that exactly. And then in September, the 20th to the 23rd, you had Mabon. And that was kind of like all the celebrations they had. Like I said, very evenly spaced, like throughout the year. And most of them were to commemorate like a seasonal kind of change. Like I said, Samhain was summer's end. That's what that means. And that was New Year's. And that meant that, summer's over, like the warm days are over, now the winter's coming. So you kind of got prepared for that. And then they would have like they would have Yule and all this other kind of stuff, and just to kind of like, I guess, keep people's morale up like during the winter and everything like that. Like, that's why you had all these celebrations like during that, give them something to do, and then you had Ostara, which is the equinox, and that was kind of like where Easter comes from, the bunnies and fertility and all that kind of stuff. So in Europe, various parts of Europe, May 1st was like the beginning of spring. And the Romans actually, I believe, started that tradition. And they had, in Rome, they had the festival of Floralia, which was a fertility, like a fertility kind of ritual. And that was celebrated for a few days, like the end of April to the beginning of May, like for about a week. And they had kind of, sports, drinking, of course. Every holiday has drinking, because why not? Feasts, because again, who doesn't like a feast? And, dancing, just, we're just a regular, like, party kind of festival like you would have. So, again, just kind of like a seasonal change.
Romans had some good shit.
They did.
They had Valentine's Day, too, but it was nothing like our Valentine's Day. It was between men, and it was totally political. It was just who was paying allegiance to what fucking group of dudes, gang allegiance, basically. I think it was all in the Senate, if I remember correctly.
That sounds like not fun at all, does it?
Yeah. Well, Rome spent most of its time as an empire in civil war with gangs inside the government fighting each other.
Well, I know that.
Roman armies in it, but Valentine's Day was dudes wearing, I think it was a heart, and every dude that had a heart was on a team, type of deal. I think it was a paper heart or some kind of card they pinned to their.
That's precious.
Yeah. But they would all be shaking hands and shit. I got you back, bro. I got you back. And somehow it became between lovers, but it wasn't.
Because maybe some of them were fucking each other.
Well, a lot of them probably were. You know how they were.
Yeah.
Fucking Roman elites were pansexual.
Yeah.
If you were totally straight, they thought you were fucking weird.
Which I kind of feel like they kind of had their finger on the pulse more than... At least they understood that human sexuality was, like, on a spectrum. Instead of just putting everybody into like a little box, like over here or over there.
Well, we always kind of compare ourselves, as an Americans in the Western world, we compare ourselves to the Romans. And there was a lot in common, but there was a lot of differences too. I mean, they were a republic and everything, and they had democratic electing processes, but buying seats and bribery was part of the fucking game.
Right.
And it's here too, just different ways.
Yeah, but I mean,
they try to hide the fact that they're doing it.
Yeah, and it's
here
like not, and it's not looked well upon. Like they were just kind of like, eh.
That's the way it was. And
everybody does it. Who cares?
and beating up and assassinating political rivals, that was part of the game. And now the sexuality thing, you got to think of it kind of like prison. As long as the man was not being placed in the female position, he was straight. If you took it up the ass, you were gay. That's just the way they looked at it.
Well, yeah.
That's what it was.
Because women are seen as inferior.
No, subordinate.
Yeah.
Not that they were the betas, basically. So you could lose your alpha status if you took it up the ass. Now, I don't know about oral. I don't know. It's not mentioned.
Now I kind of want to look that up.
Yeah. Now
someone somewhere must have written a paper on oral sex in ancient Rome.
Well, they were doing it definitely.
Well, I know that, but I'd be interested to know like what their thoughts about it were, like what their perceptions of it were, like if it's different than modern.
Now, based on my readings, a grown man wasn't supposed to be involved in any of that. It was kind of like they considered kind of like. Boys fucking around with each other was kind of normal, and that could go on into the teens. But then once you were in your 20s and stuff, you were supposed to be a man. You weren't supposed to be doing that. You were supposed to be trying to get married and pursuing women. So
grow up and get a woman pregnant.
Yeah, well, it's evidently they kind of considered homosexuality kind of something that you grew out of. But
it's just a phase.
But they also would say that no, if two dudes were really fucking just tight, then it was kind of like they were married. They had love between them and shit. Now, whether or not it was physical, I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, in the 1800s, dudes wrote letters to each other. It sounds like they're fucking... I was just going
to say that because I was just like, in the Victorian era, it was very acceptable for men to write letters which to our ears sounds like, oh my God, that is like so gay. But like, you know what I mean? And they wouldn't... I mean, yeah, some of them wrote letters like that to their wives, too, but I kind of feel like it was more, like, male relationships seemed a lot more intense.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that was because heterosexual relationships a lot of times were maybe arranged or, or it wasn't, especially in the upper, like, middle to upper classes. Yeah. And maybe, like, if you were friends with a dude, that was just kind of, like, more like you chose that friendship.
Yeah.
So they were a lot deeper, perhaps.
Yes.
So maybe that's why it seems weird to us.
Well, it was like a relationship between equals. They had equal status in society. So
that too.
They're kind of like a power couple, even though they're both married men.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say, but
because women were not really, afforded the same. They basically just like, you just stay in the house and. They wouldn't talk, and a lot of men would not talk to their wives about their work or about anything like big issues or anything because they thought, oh, the little lady can't handle it or whatever. So
I found recent stuff though. People had talked about that. There were actually feminist movements in.
There were. Oh, I know. There were.
There's all kinds of stuff. They had successful and they had powerful women.
And I've read some Victorian men, scientists and things like that, who were married to women that they saw as their equals. You know what I mean? And they wrote about them
and that went back to Rome too.
Yeah.
They had a Roman emperor who basically married a high-end call girl. She was like a porne. She was like a porn star. And people were, the high society was just aghast at this shit. But evidently all the witnesses that fucking, at least the word that we have, this is no, she was brilliant. She was a fucking brilliant stateswoman. She fucking gave great advice and knew all about politics and what the best thing to do. you know, and how to solve this problem and how to solve that problem. And so she was kind of like the emperor's fucking right-hand man, you know, his main advisor. Now, I think he got some flack for that, too. Oh, you're just sitting around doing what she tells you to do. Well, she's coming up with good ideas.
Yeah, well, it's a good idea.
You know,
what do you want me to do?
Right.
You want me to just do stupid shit just to spite her? That would be dumb.
And she was basically from the slave class, basically.
That's what I mean. It's just smart people can come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like that's kind of why I like the idea of everyone just being given like an like opportunity to do what they're good at. You know
evidently, the common people loved her.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The equestrian class, which was the rich people, the noble people and above, they didn't really like her. They thought she was above her station. You make that bitch an empress. That's crazy. You know, that's the way they thought.
Well, see, but that's just the kind of like a lot of the upper classes have always like, oh, we can't. How gauche? Like we don't want this lower class person invading our rarefied air. You know what I mean? It's just so it's like that's just kind of like a snotty classes kind of shit, and I don't really like that.
But you know, just hearing the description of ancient Rome in general just kind of reminds me of Brazil, where I grew up. It's a lot like Brazil, and it's another Latin culture. They're pretty much like that. And now I can say Brazilians gay? No, Brazilian guys in general are straight. But the thing is in Brazil, I mean, it's not considered gay to fuck a transsexual. As long as you're the male in the relationship. Transsexuals were kind of prized above biological women. That was something only rich guys had.
Well, like I said, I think the weird thing about the United States is that in a lot of ways, it's like pretty open and stuff like that. But in a lot of ways, there's a lot of that puritanical shit left over too. Yeah, it's less than it used to be, but it's still there's a very strong thread in it. Which I think
in the '80s when I lived there, their number one celebrity was a model named Roberta Close, or Close, like clothes. That's her name. You can look it up. She was trans. You wouldn't know it by looking at her though. She looked like a supermodel. And I actually looked up to see what she looked like now a couple years back, and she still looked good. She's older than me. She looks like a lady. But, you know, the hormones and shit were involved, you know.
Well, yeah, but, you know, like I said.
You're right.
I'm not really concerned about it.
I don't think she ever went through male puberty, you know.
People can just do whatever the fuck they want. Right. They're not hurting anybody.
So this is nothing new.
No skin off my ass.
That shit's happening here now. It's freaking people out. But that was nothing new, and that's nothing new in South and Central America.
One, it's nothing new, and two, it's not your fucking business.
It's been around for thousands of years.
Like, why do you care?
Yeah.
Doesn't have a fuck all to do with you.
Right.
It just seems very narcissistic to worry about what other people are doing that doesn't involve you at all. You know what I mean? I don't get it, but whatever. I'm not an asshole.
The American normie had his own psychology.
The American normie.
The American normie. Which I love the normies. You can't survive without a normie. Okay? They do a lot. They do important work.
Unfortunately, we do need some of them.
Yeah. They do important work. You know, truck drivers and fucking... And I call them normies, but a lot of those dudes are fucking amazing. You know, underwater fucking welders and shit on oil rigs, you know? Fucking doing shit I would love to be that fucking crazy. Is to work on an oil rig and go underneath the water.
You're not
and
quite that crazy.
And start welding underneath there, you know, in the fucking pitch darkness in the middle of the night.
I mean, somebody got to do it. I'm just glad it's not me.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the psychology of the American normie, it's changing, but...
It has gotten a lot better, I've noticed. It was really bad. I mean, because in our lifetimes, like, we remember, like, the fucking 80s, like, everybody freaking out about, like, satanic panic and all that kind of crap. So it's like we were, and a lot of you guys probably remember that, too. So it's just kind of like there is still a very strong strain of puritanical thinking in the American mindset, which is really stubborn. Like, it just doesn't want to go away.
We're Gen X. Gen X and below is good to go.
Like I think people are just getting a lot more chill, about it.
About half the baby boomers are kind of fucked up.
Yeah, maybe more than half, but
more than half probably.
It's all that lead. It's all that lead gasoline.
Yeah, their parents were fucked up too, but just they were just fucking squares. They were real square.
Which I have a hard time hanging with people like that. I'm not shitting on it. It's like, look, if you're just normal and just having a normal life and you don't bother anybody, fine. It's like I'm not gonna hate on you or nothing like that, but. I just have a hard time hanging out with people that have weird hang-ups about shit that doesn't involve them. Like, why do you care about other people's sexuality? Why do you care? I don't understand it at all.
They were given a set worldview that seemed to be very fucking
and it's like if something's outside of it, they just have to freak out about it or comment on it. Oh, I don't like that. Ooh, I'm like, chill the fuck out. Like, what?
Their immediate circle, you know, where they're coming from, in their immediate circle was very basic. So anything outside that was kind of like a shock. But the internet, I think, broke all that shit down.
Yeah, because I was like, man, y'all need to get out more. Seriously.
Yeah, internet stopped most of that. But you got a lot of people that don't even know how to use the internet. So.
Maybe that's why you see like kind of those old boomer people still flipping out about stuff.
We go to, you know, we live in an area where
about piercings and dyed hair. I'm like, bro, that ship sailed like 30 years ago. Did you get the memo?
We're in a place in Florida where we got fucking Dollar General stores everywhere. So you know you're in the country.
Yeah.
I'll go into Dollar General stores, and me and Jen to go through the self-checkout lane, and notice everybody's in line, and I'm looking at them checking out. And they're all checking out with cash. They don't have bank accounts.
Or they don't know how to use debit cards. Or they don't know how to use
the debit cards. I don't understand. I think.
Well, the Dollar General next to our house, literally, it's like in walking distance.
Yeah.
They closed the self-checkout. Now, they said it was because of stealing. I think it was because you've seen some of the people that go in there. They probably just didn't know how to use it.
No, I think they were probably stealing.
And they were probably stealing.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be both things.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went in a different, not this Dollar General, but we went in a different one, like in the same general area.
Yeah.
And there was this huge line, and it had a self-checkout.
Yeah.
There was a huge line for the one poor cashier.
Yeah.
And we're like, are you guys like not, oh no, I don't use that.
We don't
and
use
we're
that.
Like,
no, yeah.
Okay. And we just went over there and we're boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Bye.
I don't think they had, well, the one dude was paying in cash. That one dude was paying in cash. And I was like, that dude's, he's not using an ATM card. Yeah. You got a lot of people that don't have electronics.
Well, shit, man. There's some people going in grocery stores still writing checks, bro.
Yeah, writing checks.
I'm like, I don't even remember the last time I wrote a check.
They go in and pay for the gas and then go out to the pump. Give me $10 on fucking pump 4.
Now, I only do that if I'm buying something else.
Yeah, because you're in there already.
Because I'm in there already. Like, if I'm getting a coffee or snacks or something, then I'll do it. Because it seems dumb to, like, do 2 transactions, but...
I think there's a lot of people that don't have bank accounts.
Maybe not. Maybe they just keep all their... I don't trust in banks. They keep all this cash in their mattress or some shit like that. And then somebody in the neighborhood finds out about it and breaks in and takes it all. You know what I mean? It's like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
John Gora says some good shit. Just men are always the romantic ones. Yeah, and then he goes back and goes, whores by profession are very worldly, pragmatic, and non-judgmental.
Yeah, I found that. And like I said, I read this book, like I can't remember the name of it, but it was so fucking good. I read it like a few years ago, and it was about sex workers or madams in England, like in the Victorian era. And it was talking about how much freer those women were, how much more integrated into society they were, because they weren't, middle upper class women. They were kind of stashed away in the house. Hey, go have kids. Hey, run the household. Like, don't come out and involve yourself in this. And these women were like at the height of like, they had like salons where like all the intellectuals would come and like poets and artists and shit like that. And like everybody was, and they had mad money. They had their own money. They were independent. They didn't have to get married. They could just do whatever the fuck they wanted. I'm like, that sounds rad.
Yeah, well, that's the way New Orleans was.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like, so they had a lot more, even though, and they were talking not so much about the lower level sex workers. They're talking about women that ran brothels.
Madams, yeah.
Like and a lot of them did start out as sex workers, but then kind of worked up to that. But they said they had a lot more freedom than the average woman did at the time.
They had one in New Orleans for a while back in the 1800s who was like best friends with like the chief of police and the governor, and she knew those dudes for fucking forever. And they said that she was probably the most powerful person in New Orleans for her entire life.
And a lot of these women in this book that I read too, that were they were very, very powerful and very socially powerful, and they had a lot of money.
Yeah. Now, Victor Garcia jumps in and he goes, "History class made me gay." That's fucking funny, man. History class made me gay.
Yeah, I wanted to. I kind of wanted to. What John said about men are always the romantic ones. Is that true though?
I don't know, but somebody I think it was CB that said the Roman elites were just weird. Well, the thing is one of the things that they looked at is that Roman rich neighborhoods had plumbing, and the pipes were all lead. So there could be there could be a case to say that they had lead poisoning a lot.
Yeah, I mean, because we make jokes nowadays about boomers and the leaded gasoline and everything, which is not really a joke because there probably is something to that, and like why there was higher crime, like more serial killers.
Lead will lower your IQ. And it'll make you violent.
Yeah, it lowers your inhibitions. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of things that it does. So it's not crazy to say that. I'm sure it does have an effect.
It may, and you know, there may have been some people that were like that in power that were lead poisoned. They would have opened up the window of acceptability of things. Oh, well, the emperor did it, so I could do it.
Well, yeah, so because like nobody knew that they were all lead poisoned.
Yeah, right.
That they all had lead-addled brains.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, oh, well, he's doing it. It must be okay. Even it seems crazy, but he's the powerful emperor or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay. I guess we can do it too. Let's all fuck goats. Why not? Somebody's gonna make a gif of that. Don't fuck goats. Seriously, they can't consent. So. They probably
if you jump down on all fours, one of them jumps on your back, though, I don't think you fucking need to ask for consent.
I kind of feel like, yeah. See, I kind of feel like that's a slightly different situation because it's not like you're forcing it on the goat. No. You're just kind of like, well, I was just kind of sitting there, and then the horse just kind of stuck in it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like because obviously the horse was like, well, okay. That's kind of that
wouldn't be a horse. It would.
No, I know.
Yeah, just an example.
Yeah. Because, you know, we've seen some of that. Now we're going to get demonetized.
Yeah,
we've seen some of that
some of that weird ass
bestiality kind of stuff where it's just kind of like.
Just jumps down fucking on all fours and that dog fucking BAM! Jumps on top. She'd be laughing through the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. I'm like, you can't really say the dog's not consenting in that situation because.
It's just like, what
the dog's like, all right.
This bitch is fucking crazy. Fucking husband taking pictures of it, fucking videotaping it.
Yeah, that's a little weird. Like I said, as long as.
Some wild people, man.
It's true. And like it's weird because I kind of feel like, and we've kind of brought this up before, people always think that we're super freaky and like friends of ours are super freaky because of what we look like.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like
the people that do that, you look at them look normal most
yeah, that's what I mean. It's like normal is the ones you got to watch. Yeah. They're the ones like that feel the need to like have this outward appearance where nobody knows what they're up to.
Yeah.
Like we'll go around looking like weirdos, but we don't do anything that weird, you know what I mean? Nothing like that. Holy crap.
There's a whole scene for that. It evidently goes way back. That was evidently really big in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's when they were doing all those fucking key parties.
And all that kind of shit.
I don't know how common that was.
Maybe they just talked about it.
Maybe they just talked about it.
Just became legendary.
Although, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like it must have happened with some regularity, or they wouldn't have talked about it so much. Because I kind of feel like there was a lot of that whole sexual liberation thing, and people were like, woo, and they were just like going crazy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you fucking slutty dudes fucking tricking fucking gullible women into being hoes. Okay, that's like, give us some free sex, so you'll be liberated.
I kind of feel like that's how it
that was a lot of it.
I mean, that is how it played out.
Yeah. Hugh Hefner started all that bullshit.
Yeah.
He always had two of his fucking skanks with him.
That's the thing. I just always kind of feel like, man, I don't know. Like I said,
those girls would leave him fucking late in the modern era. Back in the 90s, they'd say what a fucking dog he was. He was a pain in the ass. He was a fucking pain in the ass to be around.
He seems like he would have been.
He's a real stick up his ass, fucking stick in the mud, boring dude who fucking was very like fucking 50s and 60s conventional, but he thought he was being really wild, but he was actually square as fuck. And he would just take care of fucking good-looking women. You know, if you want to stay at the mansion, then, you know, he'd always have two of them. Going on Howard Stern with them. They were hot, and he was banging them. But, you know, they're just live-in call girls, really, you know?
Yeah.
Basically. And that mansion was starting to fucking get pretty dilapidated by the time all that was happening anyway. You know, he didn't make a whole lot of money in the end of his career.
I mean, I'm sure he made enough to fucking last, right? You would think.
Yeah, but I think he was kind of like, a guy kind of like fucking, what's his name, Spector. The fucking Phil Spector.
Oh, the one that shot the one?
Yeah, he, had shot the fucking chick. But, he was like one of those dudes that was living in a crumbling estate, Shit, fucking Elvis was living in a crumbling estate at the time that he died. He didn't live there, though. He was living at the fucking
money,
hotel. What's that?
You can't give some dudes money, man. They just get stupid. Well, stupider. They get stupider. They just
Elvis was living in a hotel.
It's like, oh, there'll always be more money, and then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, where'd all my money go?
Yeah,
you threw it all away on hookers and blow and stupid investments and
sports cars that are gone.
Yeah, all that you crashed into a tree.
Yeah.
Boats.
Why would you buy a fucking boat?
You sunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a private airplane that you never use. You know what I mean? It's just dumb. They're just trying to impress other dudes, I guess.
Well, they have so much money that it's okay. They're just going to spend it. They don't feel it at the time. But the money flow isn't constant if you're a celebrity.
Yeah.
You know.
And the thing I always kind of thought, I don't know, because I've never really had...
Even Michael Jackson was running out of money when he died.
Yeah. I've never really had a lot of money, so I wouldn't know. But I kind of feel like most of the time, even if I had a lot of money, I'd be like, I don't really need that. When would I ever use that? I don't need that. I don't need that. You know what I mean? Why would I want
Michael Jackson
that?
spent the money to put a train around his house and hundreds of little statues of little white Peter Pan boys drinking out of the fucking water and shit. Little Peter Pan boys.
Why would you
little
need
statues and shit everywhere. Little fucking pretty little white boys. Hey, that's some shit.
Well, plus, I guess like I'm older and I've gotten used to just not buying everything I wanted because I never could.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, so I've gotten to an age now where it's just kind of like I need very little.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, I will literally, and Tom knows this, I literally just bought a new phone. Yeah. Even though my old phone was several years old and the back had fallen off of it and I had to put it back on with duct tape.
Yeah. DVD Dragon says some cool shit. That's what DVD Dragon came up with.
Oh, he says, start to celebrate Tom Hardy's Back Arch Day.
Yeah.
Hand out glazed apples and peaches as gifts. Slap ass as tribute.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Let's write to Tom Hardy and see if he will.
Yeah. Courtesy of Zach. Yeah, Zach sent me that picture.
I know. That's a great picture.
I
was impressed.
Tom Hardy's MySpace.
I was like, damn, look at that. I can't do that, and I tried, and I was just kind of, man, I can't even do that.
He took that picture of himself in his fucking
his
room on the mirror. He was laying in bed.
I tried to do it, and I was like, ow. Like, I know I'm, like, he was very young at the time, but I'm like an old bat, but you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, but I was still. Zach said, I love that I started the Tom Hardy meme around here, right? I mean, we love Tom Hardy anyway. Zach said, what kind of phone did you get, Jen? I got a Samsung Galaxy A15, I think it is. Something like that. I just got the thing that was not horribly expensive. It's not, like, top of the line, but I was like, I don't need... Like I said, I don't use a lot of shit on the phone. I take pictures with it. You know, I do GPS with it. I go on Facebook and Reddit and Instagram on it, and that's about it. And I text on it. I text my mom and shit. I don't need a lot of bells and whistles, you know what I mean? I do need a good camera and video, but, like, that's about it. So I was like, well, what's the cheapest phone that they have that has that? And that's what it was. I actually got it. I think the phone is the normal price. I think it's 160 or something like that, but I got it for, like, 70, I think. Or no, it ended up being 90, I think, with all the taxes and fees and everything. But it's a nice phone.
Says, I think my dad has that phone.
Yeah. But like, the point I'm making is that
you got Zach Dad's phone.
I got Zach's dad's phone. That's what I'm gonna start calling it. That's what I'm gonna name it. I'm gonna name it Zach's dad's phone.
Yeah.
But yeah. Tom just kept telling me, he's like, "Oh my God, will you please get a new phone?" Because it's like the back of it is just like it's like that. I'm surprised it still worked, honestly. Like when you took pictures with it, like all like, you know, obviously light would get in, like when you took a picture, so you'd get like a vignette kind of effect, like there's black around the edges, because light would get in, because the back is gone. You know what I mean? And it's just like on there with tape. He's like, please, will you please get a new phone? That's like, that looks so bad.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for ages. Oh, and the screen was cracked too, because I dropped it. I think of what had happened was it was in my lap, and I got out of the car, and I forgot it was in my lap, so it fell on the concrete. Multiple times. So I'm actually amazed it still worked. That was an LG, I think. But I don't remember what. It was an LG Stylo. That's what the old one was. But yeah, so we've wandered far afield, but...
Yeah.
But, you know, that's okay.
How much more we got?
Like half.
Okay, good.
It's not too much.
Good. We're doing.
Like
I
said, it's not super complicated.
We're doing good on time.
So where was it? Okay,
we're still in the first hour.
We got distracted by the Romans, as we usually do. We got distracted by the Romans. Because remember how I was saying that they had the Floralia festival?
Yeah.
In spring, which is kind of around the same time as Beltane and Walpurgis Night would be. and had sports and drinking and whatnot. Now, the Celts, obviously had Beltane around this time period too, and they had this same kind of stuff, but they also had the maypole, which we mentioned before. Now, obviously, everybody knows the maypole is just like a big old dick, pretty much, sticking out of the ground with all the ribbons around it, and then you get like all the pretty girls to dance around it with the ribbons.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fertility symbol, right?
Yeah.
So they had that, and that was incorporated also. Now they're not entirely sure. I thought this was kind of interesting. Now, they're not entirely sure if the maypole thing started in Britain and then went to the rest of Europe, or if it started elsewhere in Europe and then later migrated to Britain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like several European countries have that maypole tradition.
People were walking around that area all the time. They're never going to figure that out.
They probably won't. I mean,
it was tribal people for some of the time too. We're talking about during the Roman era, but no, we're talking about after the Romans, so more the medieval period. And they still walked around. People forget there was no concept of citizenship. Not really. If you spoke, you were the people of the language you spoke. If you spoke a certain language, that's what you were.
Yeah, it's like close enough.
Yeah.
If you can talk to us, then you're one of us.
Citizenship really didn't matter. Poor people didn't pay taxes and they didn't vote. They were just kind of like wildlife. The only thing that mattered is the Lord.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they were. They're wildlife.
I know. It's like, I like that. I like the way you put that, actually.
And then the local Lord had make rules, says, no, if you live here, you fucking stay here. Okay? I tie you to the land. If I sell the land, you are included in a land sale to this other Lord. So you're talking about slavery.
Yeah.
To Europeans were slaves, a lot of them. Yeah. All the serfs.
It's not like they had any money to protest it or anything. They're like,
and the Russians were like that until the modern time. People don't realize that the Russians were slaves all the way up until the fucking early 1900s, man. Most of them were slaves. They lived just like slaves. Like serfs. European serfs. I think the word slave is taken from the word Slav.
Slavic, yeah. Slav. I'm pretty sure that's what the etymology is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that. I don't know if that's a myth, but it sounds
about right.
Yeah, that's
because the way Russia was run for fucking 1,000 years was pretty fucking brutal, and it was basically European serfdom. You didn't own anything. The Lord could take over. Everything that you had was His. He could take it from you at any moment. So that's one of the reasons why they weren't a very inventive people during a lot of the times. Why would you build anything? Because they just take it from you.
And you're probably just lived your entire life in fucking fear of all your shit being taken away. It's like your livelihood being taken away and shit like that. So it's like it's not like you had time to
and you didn't have a stable lord. It was always one group coming in and displacing the other ones. You'd have Tatars coming in, and then maybe like somebody more related to the Mongols would move in, and then Nordic Russians would come in, fucking out of Ukraine, and they'd take over for a while, and you were just kind of like basically a peasant or what do you call them? A serf tied to the land. You really couldn't do anything, If you stuck your head up or said anything, they just killed you. It's fucking no value to
do anything about it.
Yeah, fucking human
so
life.
Like I said, they were probably just fucking anxiety-ridden balls of stress like all the time.
Yeah, and even during the time of fucking Peter the Great, and he was great. He was a great leader who really tried to modernize Russia. Even during that time, fucking most of the people in Russia were slaves. This shit didn't start. It didn't really stop until fucking after Stalin. After Stalin, so like 50s.
Well,
60s.
I mean, I think people kind of
60s
forget
is when the Russians kind of got freedom.
The very modern era.
Yeah.
It's like most people were just serfs, essentially.
Yeah. That's why the Russians are so tough. I got a lot of respect for the Russians. They're very good at what they do. They were very fucking tough people. SideQuest Hero speaks Russian. She's a Russian expert. They have a fucking great history and fucking literature that goes along with them. Their culture is very interesting. You had Ivan the Great. We know him as Ivan the Terrible. Just wild ass fucking stories, You had to have some grit to survive Russia. And, they're still around. They're doing good.
All right, so where was I? So yeah, maypole. Also, much like in Midsommar, they would choose a May Queen from the young women of the village and put the little wreath of flowers on her head, after which they would sew her boyfriend into a bear suit and set him on fire. Not really. Make some old people jump off a cliff. If you haven't seen Midsommar, you don't know what I'm talking about, but that's... I don't know if they actually did that. I doubt it, but that was in that movie. You know what I mean? But they did have the May Queen thing. I love that shot of Florence Pugh with the May Queen thing with the big flower dress, and she just like has that little frowny. Yeah. Like it's just like all the fucking flowers of the crowd and everything like that.
Yeah, I got hearts for fucking Florence Pugh. That's a cute girl. I like that woman.
Yeah, we always joke, and it's like every time she comes on screen, like, because she was in the new Dune and everything like that. I'm like, hey, there's your big head girlfriend.
Because she's a little body and kind of a big head, kind of cute. Looks like fucking.
That's the weird thing. Kind of big, like a big that's head the weird thing about. I think you first brought that up. Yeah. In either in Midsommar or Fighting with My Family.
I think it was Midsommar when I noticed it.
And I thought that was so bizarre because I'm like, her head just looks like a regular head, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. So that's just kind of like, so that's what I kind of, because you always notice these weird ass things that I don't know. And I'm just like, I wonder, just like, am I just not seeing it, or are you imagining things? I'm not really
It's
sure.
not a big in a bad way.
You know, I was like, her head didn't look any bigger than anyone else's.
She kind of looks like the cartoon Gloom Cookie. Remember Gloom Cookie?
Yeah.
She's a little gothic chick. She had a big head too.
Okay, well, I kind of get what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't really look like that, but I kind of see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, Zach says, and then there's Anya Taylor-Joy from The Witch with her eyes that are a mile apart from each other. Yeah, now that girl, I did notice that. I think she's really pretty, but her eyes are very far apart. Like, more far apart than a normal person.
I don't know who that is.
She was in, well, you didn't see The Witch, did you? She was in, Last Night in Soho. She was in that. Yeah, we did see it. We saw it in the theater. Yeah. We saw it in the theater.
She was the star?
Yeah.
I didn't realize her eyes were far apart. Maybe they are. I have to see it again.
They are kind of far apart. Okay. She was in The Viking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
The Northman.
Yeah. She's got pretty eyes. Yeah. You know who has those same eyes, though? Fucking, Amy from fucking... Every time I see that girl, she kind of looks like Amy.
Which Amy are you talking about?
Amy from the biker bar.
Oh, the bartender.
Yeah, she has that same. She has those same eyes. Is that?
Oh, I should look at her closely.
You'll see. You'll see. Yeah.
But the thing, Anya Taylor-Joy, I think she's beautiful. Like, she looks a little otherworldly, but I think that kind of works for her. Because her eyes are very far apart, like more than a normal person's. But it's like, that's okay. And see, that's what I mean. That's why I say, like, attractiveness. It doesn't necessarily have to do with like looking symmetrical or having perfect features or anything. Because if you have that, like, they kind of tend to all look the same.
You have to be striking.
I kind of find it more interesting when you have like features that are kind of weird, but like that works. And I think she has that. She has like really wide set eyes, but I think that really looks good on her face. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like you said about Florence Pugh, like maybe she does have a bigger head than usual. I didn't notice her head being any bigger than in a normal person's head. It's kind of
square.
She does have a
kind of square,
but a lot of people have that.
There's something about the angles of it. It kind of makes it look like it's a little big over her shoulders.
Yeah, maybe.
Like she's got narrow shoulders.
I do like her a lot, though.
Yeah, she's cute.
She's adorable.
Yeah, she's cute. I like her movies.
And she's a great fucking actress.
Yeah.
Too. We've liked everything that she's in, and she has like a good range. Like I've seen her in a lot of different roles that I'm super into. But we were talking about her because of the May Queen thing, because of Midsommar. You know what I mean? So yeah. Now, so you have the Maypole thing. So the Beltane celebrations, which, like I said, this is still adjacent to Walpurgis Night because Walpurgis Night was the night before Beltane, and it kind of all became incorporated. So what they would do is, like I said, you're trying to protect yourself from mischievous spirits, which is kind of the same thing as Halloween started as. And, the spirits would be waking up from sleep or whatever, or they were just, or looking to, like, this is their last opportunity to, like, fuck with people, right? So they're just gonna, like, fuck with people for real, like, what?
See, DVD Dragon fucking, he agrees with me that Florence Pugh could basically do Betty Boop.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. I guess I never noticed it, because
that's good. She's like Betty Boop looking.
In Midsommar, she just always had, like, kind of baggy t-shirts and jeans, like, just regular-ass people clothing on, so it's not like she was wearing anything tight that made her body look smaller or her head look bigger or anything. She just looked like a normal girl to me. But
you put that black flapper fucking haircut on her, she looked like Betty Boop.
Maybe.
We were at a bar one time and turned around and looked at this girl and said, "You look just like Betty Boop." And she was so happy. She goes, "That's my job." And I says, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm Betty Boop at fucking at the Universal Studios." Remember that?
Where was that at?
At the old I Bar.
Okay.
On Orange Ave.
Yeah.
You were talking to some chick. And
I mean, that was probably a
long time ago. I turned around and says, "You look just like Betty Boop." And she was just lit up. "Thank you. That's my job. I'm Betty Boop at fucking."
So she's like, "I guess I'm good at my job."
Like, yeah,
That's what my whole job is looking like.
Yeah, she was happy that because she wasn't in a Betty Boop outfit.
Right.
But she had that same face. She does that at Universal Studios.
I should have worn my little Betty Boop shirt. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the first one I grabbed, though. You know what I mean? I do have a little Betty Boop shirt. Tom got it for me. But yeah. So one thing about these spirits that were fucking with people on the night before Beltane that you had to protect yourself from. Sometimes they were not ghosts. They were just kind of like what they called denizens of the third way, meaning like in between heaven and hell, I guess. So those would be more like fairies or leprechauns, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Sprites, like stuff like other than human spirits, like trickster little creatures, I guess. So what they would do around this time period is that they would have to protect their house from these little guys getting in. And so what they would do is that the dad or whoever the head of the household was would put like a rowan branch like in the house, like on the ceiling or whatever. And then they would have this ritual where they had a candle and you had to like walk it from the front door to the back door. And then you had to do all the corners like in a star kind of pattern, sort of, it seemed like. Like it was just kind of a ritualistic kind of thing, like to keep all the fairies and shit like out of your house. So, you know what I mean? And another thing they would do, which is kind of like trick-or-treating, is that they would have kids and teenagers and stuff, and they would go out to the woods and get branches and shit, and then they would go around to people's houses and put the branches like in various configurations, like on their doors and windows and stuff like that, to keep the fairies out. And then the people in the houses would give them eggs, which not as good as candy, healthier, I guess. Hard-boiled eggs or just regular ass eggs?
What year was this?
This was like ancient times.
Oh yeah, when they didn't have candy.
That's what I mean.
They gave them something to eat.
Eggs, wow!
Give them some eggs.
Cracking like a fucking like a fucking bodybuilder, like cracking raw eggs.
They probably were.
They probably were.
Probably were, yeah.
I mean, I would think hard-boiled eggs, but maybe not. Maybe it was just raw eggs. Here, we just got this right out of the chicken's butt.
I'm sure that everything that you could eat, they had 4 or 5 different ways of eating it.
Mm.
Because they didn't have much variety in their diet. Everything was just locally sourced.
They were just happy for anything they got, I guess.
So they probably had a bunch of different ways of dealing with eggs. Probably boiling them in a pot with water.
Which, you know, hard-boiled eggs are good.
Or sticking them around a campfire and turning them every now and then, and they'd cook inside there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they may have not had a frying pan, you know. So, yeah. They just ate them like that, I'm sure. And that would have been considered candy.
I guess so.
Well, they didn't have sugar.
No.
The medieval period didn't have sugar.
Man,
sugar came from
I guess they didn't know any better.
They didn't know any better. Sugar came from the New World. The only thing that they had that was like sugar was honey.
Yeah.
The Romans used it a lot, and they would talk about how fucking great honey was and what the flavor that it made to food. Well, yeah, it's sugar. Yeah. But they didn't...
Yeah, because you can use honey to replace sugar in most recipes.
But they only rich people could afford it, though.
Right.
You know. I'm not... I guess they bee farmed. I don't know.
You would think that peasants would bee farm.
Yeah.
It seems like it wouldn't be that cost prohibitive.
The Romans were pretty smart. You would think that they would bee farm.
Yeah.
They probably figured it out. But there's no mention of it, as far as I know.
Because you could get honey and wax.
Mm-hmm. True, and they had wax. So maybe they did bee farm.
I would think.
If somebody
like I said, it seems pretty low cost.
Somebody go on Google and ask Google if the Romans farmed bees.
And it doesn't take up that much room either. It's not like traditional farming where you need acres and acres.
Well, the bees do all the fucking work.
Right. You don't need much room to do it.
No, you just let them fucking live inside that box, and they'll go out and fucking scavenge everything they need.
Shit, man, we had a dude that lived like out near our old house, and he just lived in this regular ass fucking little house, and he had a bunch of bees, and he used to sell honey on the side of the road out in front of his house.
Yeah, you just have the honey in a damn cooler and just a box there. You just went to it just says, and it would say honey.
Like $6 or how much it was.
$6, you know what I mean? And he didn't care if you stole it or whatever. But evidently people would get the honey and pay.
Yeah.
But there was nobody watching it.
Yeah. Because I would never steal anybody's honey. I put money in there.
Yeah, we put money in there.
Victor says, yes, the Romans kept bees, according to Google.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it seems like a really easy thing to do. Like, it wouldn't really be that difficult to figure out. And it's win-win. Like I said, you get honey and you get wax.
Yeah, they mentioned it a lot in recipes. Honey. They mixed it with drink, too.
Yeah.
To sweeten drink.
Right.
They sweetened wine with it.
Yep.
So, they knew about it. But, it wasn't sugar. There's shit you can do with sugar. You can bake easier with sugar. I'm not sure you can make cookies with honey.
Well, I guess it depends on...
I wouldn't have thought of that. They wouldn't have thought of that. They probably made shit like that. Probably like whole grains, like oatmeal, with fat and honey, which would be like shortening and honey. That would be and eggs. That would be like an oatmeal cookie. Yeah. They could probably do something like that.
Which that would be pretty good.
Yeah. But the Romans were, they'd probably put fucking sardines in it, though. They were fucking crazy.
Oatmeal cookies with sardines.
Put a sardine in it. It's great. They didn't have the same fucking... They didn't have the same sensibilities,
But talking about, like, not having candy and stuff like that, it's funny to think because, I mean, candy, like you said, is a relatively new invention. Concept, yeah. And I used to laugh at when I was a little kid, and I used to read those Little House on the Prairie books. And that wasn't even that long ago. That was like 1800s, right?
Yeah.
And I used to laugh because for Christmas, all they got was like pennies and an orange.
Yeah.
And they were super jacked.
Stoked that they got an orange.
About an orange because it's like, well, nowadays it's like it's a fucking orange, big deal. But it's like back then, you couldn't get them.
Couldn't get them.
You know what I mean? It was like a special occasion. Type of thing, and they're like, oh, they waited all year, and I'm just like, okay, I like oranges too. But...
People take so much shit for fucking granted.
They do,
okay, here's another fucking thing. You complaining about fucking poverty in the world. Okay, complaining about poverty in the United States, yeah, you do have some poor people, but fucking to look at it to try to compare poverty now to the poverty of 150 or 200 years ago, there's no fucking comparison.
Well, no, but it's all compared. It's relative to...
Poor people today have cell phones and access to the internet, and that's something that an ancient feudal lord or a fucking something like, fucking Mustache Man and the Germans didn't have that. And they're technologically, they were in the lead of the world at that time. So even poor people have access to luxuries beyond the imagination of an ancient. Tap water, our tap water that me and Jen filter, that would have been much cleaner than the cleanest water.
Well, shit, and I'll just drink it out of the tap. It doesn't bother me at all. I've been doing that most of my life.
That would have been much cleaner than any water of the 1800s and beyond. Unless you were getting out of a well or a spring. But I'm talking about in a city, through their water supply. Fuck no, the water supplies were infested with eels and all kinds of shit.
Well, shit, up until like the early 20th century, you couldn't be sure that like the food you were buying, it hadn't been inspected. Yeah. It had laid out for ages, like especially the meat. It had fucking fly larvae and shit like that all over it.
Yeah, here's the fucking beautiful thing though. People are always complaining about the fucking governments and fucking thinking that the government's going to solve all their problems and shit. Government mostly causes problems. All the things that alleviated pain and suffering of the fucking world in recent times had nothing to do with governments, had to do with technology. We have access to technology that the government probably don't really want us to have because they lose control of you.
Well, technology, I kind of feel like
technology is the great
almost always solves.
Technology is the liberator, not governments really. They can just, the only thing that they can do is assure fucking like rule of law if you got to go to court. They're good at that. Governments are good at utilities, making sure you got fresh water.
Making sure everybody's got roads to drive on
roads and
like
fresh water. Real basic shit. Once they
make sure everybody's got infrastructure that we can all use,
Once they start getting outside of that, it's grift. The military. You would think that would be like a good thing. I'm from the military. I have a military background. You would think that, that's like a utility. Yeah, but it's like 70% grift. The VA is almost 90% grift. And y'all are paying for it. It's just a big government job program.
Honestly, though, I like that they take care of you because when you've needed it, you didn't have to pay. I would have to pay, but you don't.
But the thing is, though, is that they waste a lot of money. They waste a lot of money too.
Yeah, but that's true of every.
They're wasting a shit ton of money, and they have a bunch of stuff in there that is more of a jobs program. It's not doing what they claim to do it. It's a bunch of people printing out flyers and sending the flyers from one office to the next in a big fucking circle jerk.
They're just giving people something to do.
They're giving them something to do, but the government's job in recent times is just to grow. It grow, make it bigger so you can fucking put all your friends in there, give them some work. That's what was happening in France in the 1700s. It started the fucking revolutions. You know what I mean? Fucking governments become grift, and it's just jobs programs for your friends and shit like that.
I was gonna say though, I appreciate that. You remember years back when Beijing bit you, because she didn't mean to. It was just that he was trying to get something off her leg, and she panicked, and she bit him, and he got blood poisoning. Essentially, he got an infection.
I was losing his hand.
Cat scratch fever.
Yeah.
And so you were in the hospital for 5 days, 6 days, a long time.
Mostly knocked out.
An IV and everything like that, and you didn't pay anything.
No.
Because you have VA, so it was all free. If you did not, if that had been me that had happened to, I would still be paying that shit.
Yeah, but they fucked me over. Okay? That was in a time where you could go to a doctor of your choice and the VA would pay it, which that's the way it should be. Okay?
Yeah, although you went to, emergency? That was, we went to... emergency, what happened, I remember, we went to a walk-in clinic first.
Yeah, they told me.
And they looked at you and they said, no, go to the emergency room. That's bad. Yeah. We don't have the facility to deal with that. Yeah. So we went to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And they admitted you.
They fucked me over. They fucked all the VA guys over. They said, no, if you need medical assistance, you got to go to a VA hospital. So they want to corner the fucking market. VA hospitals are the fucking worst. You want to go to a civilian.
Yeah, we just went to a regular hospital.
Yeah,
and
civilian private.
They ended up paying.
Yeah. Fucking people in England probably know what we're talking about. We don't really have government hospitals. They're all private businesses.
I mean, they have private shit there too. I think people don't realize that, but you can pay. People get shit through their employer just like normal. It's just that regular people just have that as a baseline. Right. You don't have to get private insurance, you'll get your shit paid for, but you can get it if you want it. It's available.
If you don't have any money, the people say, "Oh, the people are dying. They don't have the fucking health care." You got health care here. If you get hurt, you go to the emergency room. They fucking patch you up. They don't let you die, whether you have money or not. Now afterwards, they're gonna ask you if you have insurance. You say, "No, I have insurance." Okay, well, we're gonna have to bill you, and they'll send you a bill. It'll be fucking exorbitant, hundreds of thousands probably.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: in the United States, man, they can't really do anything to you.
I just wouldn't pay.
You just don't pay it or you pay little by little.
The problem arises. It's not so much.
Can't do anything to you.
It's not so much when you have something that necessitates going to an emergency room. Yeah. It's when you have a chronic condition. That's when you have problems.
Right. The thing is, though, is they have to look at it from their point of view. They're like, yeah, you're a cool person and all, but you're fucking 40, and you probably only have 20 years to live. But that's a full lifespan for you. Go ahead and have fun. You don't have the money, we're not really going to treat you. Because people have a fucking normal life expectancy. And it's not very high. It's like 70 for men. I think 71 in the United States. Which, shit, anybody can make it to 71. A fucking wino can make it to 71. But that's how they look at it.
That's pretty low. It's much higher in Europe and Asia.
But they were just looking at it. Well, the thing is you have people that
probably
immigrate.
Because they have better healthcare than we have.
No.
Yeah.
Homicide rates affect life expectancy.
Well, that too.
Fucking, you have immigrants in here that fucking, had shit healthcare, and they're in their 30s or 40s now, and they have problems. They're factored in. So it's all just part of it. Human life is cheap. You're not here to fucking take other people's money. They don't give a fuck about you. If you can't make your own money, then oh well. That's the way they think of it. But that's kind of the way it is. That's kind of the way it is.
But, I don't want to live like that. I mean, I would hope you
we do. We're living in nature.
I know that, but I'm just saying that I would hope that you wouldn't think of me that way.
No.
I don't think of you that way.
No, but
I don't think of anyone that way, honestly.
They think that.
Well, yeah, I know that.
We're just numbers.
But that's horrible.
Yeah. Well, they're cold-blooded. They have to be cold-blooded because if they were compassionate and shit, the civilization would fall because they'd be helping everybody. They don't have the resources. The numbers don't work out. Somebody got to die. That's how they look at it.
Well, I know that's how they look.
Yeah, they're like, we only have a certain amount of wealth. We can't give it to y'all. You guys don't do anything. You just sit around watching television.
Look, I need my $1 billion, okay? That's basically how that works. I can't give you peons $5. Come on now.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Victor says the ancient Egyptians were keeping bees 4,500 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it would have surprised me if somebody hadn't figured that out very early on.
Egypt became part of the fucking Greco-Roman spheres during the Hellenistic period.
Because that seems like
they would have got that.
All you'd have to do was look at bees doing that, figure out what they were doing, and we could make them do that.
That area is not tropical. They didn't have sugar cane to make sugar. If you could have brought sugar to them from the New World, you'd have been a rich man. They would have loved that.
Oh, yeah.
If you showed them what to do with it.
Well, shit, man.
Because it's a lot more concentrated. It's a lot more concentrated than fucking honey. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine what it would have been like to grow up in such a sad time period where the only candy you had was those fucking chalky-ass things and that...
Necco wafers,
which they still sell. Who the fuck buys them?
That was fucking... I love them. I love them.
You don't buy them, though.
No, but if I don't see them for sale.
They still sell them, though.
You could take those Necco wafers back to the fucking Roman period and you'd be rich.
They would fucking crave themselves over that. Oh my god, these are the best things ever. I'm like, oh, you poor people.
Yeah.
Please come in my time machine. Let me show you some real fucking food.
You could show up to fucking ancient Britain with a pack of Tic Tacs and probably make a shit ton of friends with just Tic Tacs and a fucking big lighter. You'd fucking blow their mind.
Or they'd burn you for witchcraft, one or the other.
I'd scare the fuck out of them. I'd scare them too much.
Somebody Phantom, I think it was Phantom was asking earlier. He wondered if male warlocks or witches were burned as often as women. Men were executed too, but...
They called them witches.
Yeah, no. Not in the same numbers.
The only one I can remember in the New World was there was a witch
Giles
panic.
Corey.
Was a fucking witch panic going on, and they accused some good-looking guy who was good with a fiddle. Some women said he put a spell on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And nobody bought it. According to the witness that I read, nobody bought that shit. And they fucking killed that dude, and everybody was sad about it.
They're like...
You know, and they were like, that dude wasn't a witch. He was like just a 17 or 18-year-old good-looking dude that could play a fiddle. Play a violin.
That was some play hate right there.
It was play hate.
And, that dude's too good looking. He's stealing all our women.
Yeah. What was a woman that accused him? There was a woman that accused him.
Oh, well, maybe he rejected her.
Might have rejected her or something.
And then she got everybody to kind of go
was sleeping with the wrong
it.
woman, And
yeah, I mean, there could have been a million reasons.
Yeah, he denied it and shit like that, and fucking that was I think the New England area. They didn't do so much torture then. They just pressed him. Remember?
Well, that's how, like I said, that's how Giles Corey died.
They pressed. Put him under a board and just keep adding rocks until it fucking killed him.
Yep. Here's the cool thing. Giles Corey, who was the only man who was executed during the Salem witch trials, story goes that they kept putting rocks on there and stuff like that, and they asked him, they heard he said something, and the bitch said, "More weight."
Yeah, well, he's trying to get it over with.
Yeah.
I'd be the same.
And I was like, that's badass.
Because they're trying to torture you. I'd say, no, put it all on there at once. Let's get this shit over with. I don't want to sit here for 4 hours fucking fighting this shit.
Like getting squished.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you would even do that to somebody, that just blows my fucking mind. People are horrible.
People kill other people for belief. They think they're
fucking dumb.
They think they're doing it for a good cause. They're helping humankind. They're helping mankind. Doing what they're doing. Ain't that some shit?
Sad, really. Yeah. Do better, people. You can do it. You can do it. Okay, Victor said 5 men were hanged as witches. Okay, I stand corrected. I thought Giles Corey was the only one. But yeah, he was pressed to death. But yeah, 5 men were hanged. Like I said, I'm not really sure. I don't have the statistics on the European witch panics on me, but I do kind of feel like it was overwhelmingly women. But Some men were too, and apparently, like, a lot of I read a couple books about this, like, back in the day, where they were saying that you could be accused for lots of different reasons, obviously, like somebody just didn't like you, or you were weird, or whatever it was. But one thing, and midwives, they didn't really like midwives either. So that was a big thing. But the church also, after they passed some laws in certain jurisdictions, that the church would get all your shit if you were convicted of witchcraft. Obviously, then the church had mad incentive to accuse people of witchcraft, like, especially people that had money or, like, had shit that they wanted. Oh yeah, they totally, like, cast a spell on me, and then they would get all your stuff. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of that going on too. So obviously these people were not really witches, even if they were. I mean, they didn't really have magical powers. It's like they were just going out in the woods and dancing naked. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Let them do it. Let them just be. Come on. But yeah. So where was I? Okay, so we were talking. We get so distracted. So yeah, you got the maypole, you got the trick or treating, kind of thing. It's not exactly trick or treating. They get eggs. They're putting shit on your house, but not like toilet paper or nothing. But they're putting helpful shit on your house. Keep fairies out. You know what I mean? You get eggs for your trouble. Thank you. And then, because, alcohol, you always have to have a festival, and alcohol always has to be involved because that makes it fun. They had specific kinds of alcohol that were brewed especially for these events, like different kinds of, like, super strong beer and, like, a May wine, like different kinds of stuff like that, like mead, like a specific kind of mead that they would do for these festivals. So, they'd have a big feast. Everyone would get, like, super fucked up. It was a good time. And again, this was kind of a thing too, where you were supposed to, like, set out food for your loved ones that had died. You're supposed to, like, make their favorite food so they would come and visit you. That was, like, an incentive. So that was another thing that they did too, like making their favorite dishes. So yeah. Also, the alcohol served another purpose too, other than just being fun and making everybody crazy and just, like, having a fun party and everything. It would also make everybody loud and obnoxious. And everybody being loud and obnoxious was said to, one, scare away the bad spirits, and two, attract the good spirits, because the good spirits would recognize their loved ones' voices. You know what I mean? Like when they were drunk and yelling. So it was seen as, like, a win-win. Like, everyone getting, like, fucked up and stuff. Which I thought that was so fucking funny, like, when I read that. So that's, like, one of the best justifications for drinking at a big party like this that I can think of.
What was the justification? I missed.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to explain it again.
No, don't do it. Explain it again.
No, it's funny. So they're drinking at these, Beltane / Walpurgis Night celebrations, and they said the drunker they got, the louder and more obnoxious they got. Yeah. And they said this was good because the loudness would scare away the evil spirits, but it would also attract the good ones, because they would recognize their loved ones' voices. Well, okay. Like when they were drunk and yelling.
Very easy explanation for this.
Yeah. I love that.
When you're drunk and having a party, you're not scared.
That too.
You're feeling good. If you're feeling good, that means the spirits are with you. The good spirits are with you. Probably why they called fucking alcohol spirits to begin with.
I would drink imagine, the shit,
yeah. And you fucking, your spirits get high, and you're in the spirit world, and fucking you feel good. That's what they're talking about, probably. So yeah, get drunk, man, and fucking the evil spirits will fucking run away, and all the good ones, you party and shit, you can make out, and fucking these chicks and shit. That's what they're talking about.
Oh, and that was another thing too, is that the drinking would lower everyone's inhibitions, because another thing around Beltane / Walpurgis Night was fertility. Yeah. So sexual dalliances.
Oh yeah.
Were very common. Yeah. And that was another thing that the alcohol facilitated.
Yeah, you're gonna party fear away.
Yeah, I mean, whether people regretted it the next day, I mean, I'm sure probably people did. But, like I said, it's a fucking party. Yeah. And another thing they would do, too, like, other than, fucking everybody. Well, they didn't fuck everybody. It was just kind of like...
It was a wild night.
Well, yeah, it was kind of like a wild night, and there was a thing, too, where they'd have
like
parties...
Carnival.
Well, they would have kind of parties where they would do, like, divination about who your marriage partner was going to be. You know what I mean? They play those kind of divination games like, oh, what's my husband going to look like?
It's almost like spin the bottle.
Yeah, like it was that kind of stuff. Like they would do that kind of stuff. Because it had something to do with, like I said, fertility rituals, because it's all about renewal, rebirth, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Which, like I said, that's normal.
Humans,
it's normal.
Humans
like,
doing what humans do.
Right, yeah. That's just
now
normal.
Church would be like, oh, this is sinful. They're going to say that. But no.
Well, they make everything boring.
Yeah, they're partying.
They make everything boring.
Yeah, partying the blues away.
Sure. And I mean, the thing about it is that you got to think, like, what these people's day-to-day life was like. It's like, every few months or every month or something like that, you just have, like, a big fucking party. It's just something to look forward to. They always had something to look forward to.
In the defense of the church did that kind of shit, too, during certain periods. They ensured that peasants had certain days off, and they ensured that they were partying on certain days. So there were times in where the Catholic Church was actually party central. I don't remember. I just heard that from guys that know, historians that are into religious mythology and how the ancient church actually worked. And it was probably not everywhere in Europe. And I think it was actually talking about, the British Islands. That there were times in which, this is before the Church of England, so we must be talking about 1600s, 1500s, that the church's job was to make sure people fucking were singing and dancing and fucking partying, and getting days off. So the church was very popular. That was their only source of entertainment.
Well, yeah, like I said, they didn't have video games or movies or nothing like that back then.
And you got a day off. From working in the field.
It's like, woo, let's go get drunk.
Yeah.
That's probably what most
Lord can't do anything to us.
It's not like there was anything else to do.
They got drunk and had sex.
Yeah, because like I said, there wasn't anything else to do.
No.
They didn't even have electricity.
They didn't even really have very much to eat.
Yeah.
Because it would have been the same boring shit you were always eating.
That's what I mean. And I kind of feel like that's why these festivals, like, loom so large.
Yeah.
In those time periods, because, like I said, nowadays it's kind of like, Christmas, whatever. But it's just kind of like, oh, big feast. You eat good all the time. Yeah. Back then, they didn't. And like I said, there was nothing else to do. Literally nothing else. Yeah. Especially if you were a peasant. You couldn't read. Yeah. They didn't have TV. They didn't have internet. They didn't have nothing.
They had field work.
Yeah. They just worked.
In the field. Yeah.
They worked and went to sleep. And worked and went to sleep. So it's like if you had a day where you had a big feast, you could get as drunk. You could get shit-faced. You could have sex. You could just let that be the best day ever.
And that whole family would come in from work, probably sopping wet because it rains a lot in the British Islands. And evidently they'd take all those clothes and they just throw them at the foot of the bed, and the entire family would all get in the same bed together. Not even taking a bath or anything.
Freaky.
Just fucking.
Let's all share our life.
Yeah, and then they'd have like barnyard animals in the fucking room with them to keep them warm by the fire.
Those pigs over here.
They had goats and pigs and shit, fucking chickens and shit. I don't know. Yeah, because I don't know if they had chickens. They probably had some pheasants and shit.
That's pretty funny.
Bring the cow in. And they're basically living in a stable.
Yeah.
Kind of at the level of animals. Animals that could talk. So fucking count yourself fucking lucky. And they didn't know any better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody lived like that. It's not like they were just like, man, I wish I lived in the 21st century.
Yeah, and some of
when they had cool shit.
A medieval peasant was poor in comparison to even a Roman slave. I think some of those Roman slaves probably lived fucking very well, especially if you're a favored slave in some kind of palace, and your master is a fucking rich dude. Yeah, you had it fucking made compared to this fucking serfs.
I would not. That would be a fucking nightmare.
You're living
like I said, they don't know any different.
They're living like barnyard animals.
Yeah, they don't know any different, but
yeah,
I would not want to go back in time and fucking knowing what I know now.
Yeah, and the lords didn't live that much better, really. It was just a time.
That's what I mean. Like, comparatively, even if you had a lot of money back then, it's not like they had, like, way better shit than the peasants had.
No, not the same. Well, they had a little bit of access to more food.
Yeah,
and
they had better food.
Better food.
That's for sure.
But they still fucking pissed behind curtains and pissed in the hallways and shit.
Yeah, they still didn't have toilets.
They fucking had dogs taking their shits everywhere inside the house. They were stone fucking castles or wood castles. They had them both, but they just evidently were pretty fucking nasty.
Yeah, everybody smelled. Yeah. Everybody had lice and scabies and God knows what else.
Some of them had a thing that was kind of like a bathroom. It was more like an outhouse on the second floor. You could crap, but it would just fall down a chute into a bucket. There was no water involved.
Fancy.
Fucking, yeah. And fucking,
then somebody servant, would have to pick up the bucket and chuck it out in the yard.
Yeah, and those turds are hitting the side of that shit. Fucking, so it's constantly stinking in there. You know what I mean? Because that chute is going to be filled fucking shit.
Of course.
Filled with shit all over the side of it.
And I'm sure they never cleaned it. It's like they didn't have a hose or nothing. They couldn't power wash anything. They just
left it like that. They just shut the door.
Like I said, I wouldn't have.
They just shut the door. They just shut the door to the fucking bathroom and fucking smell probably came through there and everything. But they probably didn't smell it because they were probably just so used to everything.
Like, I kind of try to think about that. Like, whenever I complain, like, you know, we had the hurricane and like the power went out for like a day. I think it was like 24 hours maybe. And it's like, man,
I'm not sure what. I don't. They probably didn't.
This really sucked. Like, our water went off too, so you couldn't flush the. Like, we had to pour water in the toilet, like in a bucket to get it flushed. But it's just kind of like, it was a pain in the ass. But you kind of think it's like back then.
Yeah.
That was it. They didn't have a toilet.
Yeah.
They just pooped in the yard or pooped in a pot.
They didn't have toilet paper. I don't know how they fucking wiped their ass. And those bitches didn't shave. They didn't have razor blades.
You know what? I don't know. Did they use like the corn cob or
constantly
like pine cone or
dingleberry motherfuckers everywhere?
That's so gross.
Yeah, I don't think they bathed much.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Some of the fucking Europeans, I see them on their fucking channels. And fucking, they'll look at the dude's hair and it says, "Man, that motherfucker hasn't been in a shower in a couple of days." But they're just a different breed, man. Some of them are like that.
Well, I know some Americans like that.
Yeah, but
I don't know about that though. Victor says Church of England made you choose between cake or death. Yeah, I get that reference. That's Eddie Izzard. Cake or death. That was a great fucking bit. Phantom said they played violins like Pa Ingalls. Yeah, I guess. And everybody had to sit around going, ooh, boring. DVD Dragon says, imagine a goat straight up side-eyeing you while you're balls deep in your wife. Yeah. Well, I mean, not to, I was going to say, like, not to go TMI, but, like, it's way too late for that at this point on this show, at least. But sometimes, Pookie will be sitting at the foot of the bed, like, on the bench at the foot of the bed, you know, while we're going at it.
She's not watching, though.
She's not really watching. She's just kind of like, whatever.
She's looking around, just sleeping.
She used to be kind of like, what are y'all doing?
What the fuck is this? What are you guys doing?
But now she's like,
she's not interested.
Oh, they're doing that again.
Yeah.
And she just kind of sits there.
Yeah.
So sometimes they do watch. Like, Bambi doesn't watch, but Pookie used to. And it's a little weird, but it wasn't, I don't know. It's not that weird. I guess you kind of
My first wife, her cats would get at the foot of bed and worship.
They were just like watching the whole
thing?
Oh,
yeah. And they'd be like, they'd both be sitting down sphinxed out with their hands out in front of them, just watching, purring.
That's pretty
and looking at each other like, oh, yeah, they're at it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fucking, I'd be look at your cats. She's like, yeah, they're worshiping us.
That's pretty funny.
It's weird, yeah.
Like I said, Pookie used to be weirded out, but now she's just kind of like, man, whatever. She'll sit there, but she's not really paying that much attention. Like, sometimes we don't even notice her until, like, after. I'm like, hey, Pookie's in there. You know what I mean? It's, like, kind of funny. But, yeah, so, where were we? We got distracted again by...
just going through the show.
Yeah, divination games and fucking and whatnot.
Yeah.
So all of this fun was going on for many, 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 many years, centuries. And then here comes the Christians. Now, when they kind of came in this area, you got this nun, as I mentioned, named Walpurga, that's kind of a crazy name. She was from Devon, I think, originally in England. She comes to Germany, and maybe her family was German, because that's a very German name, Walpurga. And so her brothers, who were also sainted later, her brothers' names, I love this, were Willibald and Vinibald.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And Walpurga, the three kids. Great. So, so the two of them were also canonized, like, later on. And they went to Germany and founded kind of religious little communities or whatever. And Walpurga's dad, like all their dad, he was very religious also, but he was on pilgrimage, and he died when she was 11. And then she went to an abbey, got educated. She took orders to become a nun, and then she kind of taught school, like, religious classes or whatever. And then she had an uncle who was also a saint, Saint Boniface, and he called the brothers to do missionary work in Germany, and then later Walpurga followed them. So she goes to this monastery in Heidenheim, which is where her relics were for a long time, which is the monastery that her brothers founded. And then when they died, she headed up the monastery. And as I mentioned, she was seen, even in her lifetime, as this like a healer. And her specialty was healing wounds and injuries caused by witchcraft, and also fending off witchcraft, I'm guessing. That was kind of her big thing and what everybody came to her for. Yeah. And apparently her, the monastery she established, a lot of scholars came there and stuff like that. So it was kind of a big deal. So she was kind of an expert on how to counteract witch spells, preventative maintenance against witch spells and things of that nature. So I thought that was very funny. So she was kind of known even in her lifetime as she's kind of the person that you go to when you want to combat witches or, by extension, the devil. So that's who went there. So now she died in 777 on February 25th. And she initially, like I said, got buried at her monastery. And even for many years after she died, people started coming to her tomb, and much like a lot of other Christian saints, pilgrims that went there said that they were cured just by going to her tomb. Like she was magically curing them from beyond the grave, right? So that went on for almost a century. Then in 870, her body got moved to Eichstätt, to a Benedictine abbey, which one of her brothers had also founded, later on. And so even though her remains got moved on May 1st, which is why they named that day Walpurgis Night after her, even though her saint's feast day, because in the Catholic calendar all the saints have their days, was actually February 25th, which is the day that she died, you know what I mean, which is standard procedure. So like I said, I think they named that day Walpurgis Night after her on May 1st because they were trying to counteract Beltane, is what they were trying, because Beltane is May 1st. So they said, it was kind of like April 30th and May 1st. So they're like, we're going to counteract this pagan festival by making this a saint celebration. But that was a later edition. That was 870 or right around that time that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not super clear how the observance of this holiday kind of evolved over the years. Like I said, obviously, in places where Christian influence was less, the pagan celebrations continued on as they had for previous centuries. But I kind of feel like as the Christians kind of got more and more influential, they started adding little things onto that celebration, because the celebration nowadays is very similar to how it was in ancient times. It's just that there's a couple of little flourishes added because of the Christianization of it, I guess. So, but yeah, so I kind of feel like too, here's the thing. Remember how I said that people would come to her grave after she died and said they got cured of shit? There was also a thing too where even the water in the tomb was, if you drank it, it was supposed to heal you also, which I kind of feel like, again, is very common in saint kind of things. And they even call it Walpurga's oil. She's not the only saint that's happened to, but that's that happened to her as well. So I kind of feel like, so it was that kind of thing where the Christianization was kind of added to. But now, the earliest mention of Walpurgis Night, specifically alluding to celebrations about her, were from 1603. in a book called The Calendarium Perpetuum by Johann Kohler. So it was being observed in that time period. And it kind of evolved from there. And by this time period, I kind of feel like the celebrations had merged, with the Germanic May Day or Witches' Night and Beltane. All of that stuff had kind of mixed together, and then there were these little Christian flourishes added onto it by that time. You know what I mean? So you had something called Maytide, which was celebrated around the same time. And that was kind of an upper class celebration, but it was also very similar. They had kind of dancing. What they would do is when the first violet came out in spring, they would all go dance around it as you do. And they would do play music and go boating, and sexual dalliances, as that was pretty common, and that kind of stuff. You had troubadours singing, all that kind of stuff. And that's a pretty common thing of the modern ones too. And they had so I don't know. So you kind of had the upper class doing that. You had the lower class, but doing running off to the woods and fucking. That was a pretty common thing, having to do with all these celebrations. You know what I mean? Now, as I said, this kind of spread. You kind of had in a lot of the Germanic countries, and it spread to the Scandinavian countries, where it's still celebrated to this day. In Sweden, it's actually known as Valborg, which is what Walpurga was known as in that country, and so it's kind of the same thing. But they have, in Finland particularly, and I kind of feel, and I think they still do this nowadays, at least according to videos I saw on YouTube of people from that region talking about it, is that they still do, they burn witches in effigy. That's pretty common in Finland and in Germany too, but I kind of feel like it's more common in Finland. And so it's kind of like I said, it's kind of like an anti-witch celebration, but not so much nowadays. People still they dress up as witches, which I kind of feel like is a newer addition to it. So the celebration actually kind of went a little bit dormant in the 18th century. There weren't as many written accounts of it being observed, but then weirdly, in the 19th century, for whatever reason, university students in Germany and Scandinavia decided this would be a cracking holiday to celebrate. So it kind of got brought back because they were very enamored of the idea of just doing getting drunk, pulling pranks. Was a very common thing to do. Fucking.
Yeah.
So everybody likes that.
Yeah, you gotta do shit,
So yeah, so they were students actually brought it back in the 19th century, and I kind of feel like that tradition, at least what I saw, because I did see a Finnish girl talking about it, and a Danish girl talking about it, and they were like, yeah, even nowadays in Finland, they're like, this is an occasion to get really drunk. It's kind of have a lot of sex, pull a lot of pranks. They said a very common pranks putting toothpaste on people's doorknobs, just just regular harmless kind of pranks. Egging people's windows like people would do on Halloween. It's that kind of shit. So they do that kind of stuff. So yeah. And it's, so in that way, they'll toilet paper people's houses. Crap like that. So, and I kind of feel like as time has gone on, the modern celebration of it is actually much closer to modern celebrations of Halloween, as people generally dress up as witches or other things, fairies, whatever, and will go house to house, trick-or-treating, just like they would in the United States. And if you don't give them anything, then they'll do the same shit that, traditionally people would do on Halloween, where they'll egg your house or put toilet paper all over your trees or whatever the fuck. So they'll do that kind of stuff, or leave dog poop on your doorstep, shit like that. And they still do the thing, not so much here, but in European countries that celebrate Walpurgis Night, they still do the thing where they write down all their grievances or, the shit that happened to them in the previous year that they want to forget about, and they have a big bonfire and they burn it in there to like forget about or purge it or whatever. That's like kind of another big aspect of it too. Some places, like I said, this is kind of a big deal in some places still. So they'll have like a big fireworks display. They'll have bonfires. You know, they have like specific drinks that they drink. Like everybody gets super drunk and makes a lot of noise. Like I said, for the reasons that I outlined before, like to frighten away evil spirits or attract the good ones to you. You know, because you want all your people to come, like cooking favorite foods that your loved ones liked, you know, that kind of stuff. So because of these revelries, even in Europe, Walpurgis Night has suffered some of the same condemnation from hardcore Christians as Halloween has, because it's essentially, I kind of feel like in Europe it's almost the same thing. Like I said, kind of trick-or-treating, pranks, shit like that. Like we don't do fireworks on Halloween, but they do fireworks on Walpurgis Night in some places. Because like I said, it's kind of a big deal. But again, because we can't have nice things, some people get a stick up their butt about it, and it's like, hey, we don't like all this drinking and revelry and sex and merrymaking and all that other kind of stuff. No, we can't have that. So they start getting all butthurt about it. You know, for the same reasons. Like I said, because you're
sinning.
Yeah, and because they said, oh, well, you're focusing on witches and, you know, spooky things, and it's like, that's bad, and it's all this other kind of stuff. But the stupid thing about that, like, yeah, there's an argument you can make maybe for Halloween. Like, I'm not saying I would never make this argument because Halloween's awesome. But it's like, I could see where they're coming from with Halloween. But the thing about Walpurgis Night is that it kind of started out, like I said, as anti-witchcraft. You know what I mean? They were trying to fend off witches.
Yeah.
Like, even back in ancient times.
Yeah.
And yeah, it got more pronounced, like, when the Christians kind of took it over and, like, named it after the saint and everything like that. But it's just kind of like, so you'd think that they would like that? But I guess, like I said, they don't like anybody having fun. So if somebody's having fun somewhere, and they're not invited, I guess they get upset about it. I don't know, man. I don't understand anyone being offended by Halloween or anyone being offended by...
I think what there was is that there were class differences involved in this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotta pee real quick.
The church and the people that were in the church were a higher class than peasants. I mean, they were literate. They can read the Bible. So that means that they were also literate in Latin, because the Bible was written in Latin during this time they're talking about. So I think in some places and sometimes in general in Europe, the clergy thought that these little folk rituals, these folk fucking celebrations were fucking crass, low class shit, and like mind in the gutter. That's what they fucking, I think that's what they thought of them. So they'd come in there and go, look, you know, this. They'd try to fucking paint their holy day over, you know, one of these things, and they'd say, look, instead of you guys really, you know, you need to be focusing on Christ. You need to be focusing on the fucking sacrifice that Christ made for you. And, you know, that's how, you know, if you want to be pious, you're supposed to be serious-minded. We don't want you out here fucking partying, you know, knocking these girls up. So stop what you're fucking doing. Stop with all this pagan foolery and fucking pagan idolatry and all this partying and shit. And become serious and get to fucking work and fucking read the Bible and fucking raise your family. That's, you know, like a good man. That's what they're thinking.
What, they want all the peons to be...
They want the peons to be high class and fucking and to just...
I don't even think they care if they're high class. They just don't want to deal with them. They just want them to behave.
I think they wanted
them
to act like educated people. And I think educated people were the clergy, you know, in this place and time. So they wanted them to fucking class up and be fucking holy. You know, that's what they wanted to be. They wanted them to be... what it's not... Holy is not the word I'm looking at. They wanted them to be pious, you know, and fucking bow their head and to be fucking turn the other cheek and fucking be humble and Don't think about yourself, and fucking think about others. Think about the Lord, Jesus, and His sacrifice. They're doing that. Okay, and they're saying these things are distracting from the seriousness of the fucking scriptures. That's what they're doing.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna say, look, my atheist ass. I'm all about not being an obnoxious douche. Okay, like I don't particularly like people that are super loud or super obnoxious or super like in your face or anything like that. So I can see where they're coming from. I'm just saying that telling other people that they can't have a good time when all they do is just like work in the field,
especially they're peasants,
and shit in a bucket.
They're fucking peasants,
and that's their whole entire life, and eat bread with fucking ergot in it or whatever the fuck.
It's just like any other thing, It's just like the rich and educated.
Give them a break.
Rich, educated people don't know what fucking working class Americans, what their life is actually like. They can imagine it, but they've never lived it. It's kind of like that song that British song that you like, by fucking Common People.
Oh, Pulp.
Yeah, Pulp. Yeah.
I do like that song.
Yeah, it's a good song. So that's what they're doing. They're kind of punching down on these people, telling them to fucking class up, and they're thinking, well, if I was poor, I would still be the same pious and exalted fucking person I am now as a fucking bishop. You know what I mean? Fucking, it wouldn't change me to take my fucking regalia away and my status. I would still be a fucking... That's what they're thinking. That's not the way life really is, though. And then it's not wise. And evidently it wasn't like this all the places and all the time, because I've also heard from people who fucking read the original shit, in certain places at certain times the church was about partying and getting days off. And they made sure the peasants partied. You know why? It avoids peasant revolt. It's a lot safer.
I was going to say. Well, that's what I was saying before. Like, they just wanted poor people to behave so they didn't have to want to feel fucking deal with
it's
them.
a lot better to fucking...
Because there's a lot more peasants than there are aristocrats.
Right.
And it's like, if these people get pissed off enough, they're going to come and cut your head off. So
some areas were a little more far-sighted.
I mean, they wanted them to like fucking settle down. Like, here, have some parties.
Yeah, y'all need to fucking party.
Have some
You've been working. Yeah, the Lord is fucking blessing you.
Have some hookers. It's fine. Just chill the fuck out.
The Lord is blessing you.
Don't behead us, please.
You go fucking you go be with the Spirit, and fucking it's gonna be fucking great. And you get back to work fucking in 2 days from now, and fucking come to church, and fucking it's all good. So blowing in the army, we called it blowing smoke up somebody's ass. Or blowing sunshine up somebody's ass.
Well, that's not just the army. Everybody says that.
Right, yeah. Okay, so that's in some places the church blew smoke up people's asses.
Sure.
Because that's actually better. You can keep the fucking hoi polloi and the peasants a lot more in control if you're rewarding them, not punishing them.
Yeah, controlling people by fear only works up to a point.
It's not that effective.
It's gonna blow up in your face. It wears out big time.
Yeah,
eventually
they catch on to it. They're like, you know what? They're just telling us to do this shit because fucking they don't want us to have a good time, and they're oppressing us. So we push back, man. And they push back, and then they end up getting what they wanted. So that's probably what happened. I guess I bet you in those areas where the churches were cool to the people, is because they pushed back. Yeah. And then the church realized, be better to be in a symbiosis.
Yeah,
with these
just
people.
let them do what they
want.
When
they want to fucking party, we'll tell them that God said they can do it.
Yeah, God said you're allowed.
And that's a much smarter strategy for mass control.
Yeah, I mean they still have power, but at least the people under them aren't like fucking suffering the way they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though some stick in the mud and go, well, life is supposed to be suffering. Think about the fucking Jesus and the cross that he bore to save your soul and all. They would do that.
Honestly, that
is not effective though.
No,
that's not effective.
Well, and honestly, that's one of the, and there are some people that do think like even to this day.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, I feel like that is one of the reasons that I've never been a big fan of religion in general or Christianity in particular, is just because the deification of suffering.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit when we did that show about Mother Teresa, where her whole thing was, suffering brings you closer to God. Even that, she didn't suffer, obviously, because when she had some shit, she went and got the best medical care. Right. But for the hoi polloi, it's fine. They can suffer.
Yeah.
That's better. And it's just kind of like, I kind of feel like that's, usually how that goes. Like, suffering brings you, but not me.
Right.
I don't want to suffer.
Right,
you guys can, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I kind of feel like that's
spiritual instruction, not me. I know
exactly.
Yeah,
and I just kind of feel like it's usually that's the case.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. And any kind of belief system that says that suffering will bring you, you're supposed to suffer, or that'll bring you closer, that is fucked up. That is a fucked up
I'm going to tell y'all something that's a fact. Churches that are doom and gloom and all about suffering don't get very many followers. Well, churches that are happy clappies get a shit ton of followers. And the church, the European church in some areas, my understanding, they went the happy clappy route. Just to keep them happy and clappy and singing and coming and partying and keep them joyful.
Better for everybody.
That way you don't get fucking slave rebellions, peasant uprisings.
Yeah, like I said,
where the serfs just fucking go after the lords.
You make everybody miserable. Eventually, everyone's gonna break.
Blow up on you.
Yeah, and that's gonna like come back to bite you in the ass, big time. I don't know, and I don't really know why. Even just as an individual, in this day and age, there are still people of a religious mindset that feel like they need to suffer, or they need to be miserable, or they need to be angry.
It's
or
like
something.
masochism.
Or it's something like that.
It's like masochism. Most of them aren't like that, though.
I feel like most people aren't like that, but there's definitely like a large minority.
Even in the
that get off on just being angry and miserable.
In the Christian scene, positive happy clappies and fucking are the most popular. What they call, like new churches. Another thing that's popular is kind of like that prosperity gospel, where you have churches that say God wants you to be rich, and this is how we're going to be rich, and then they do fucking pyramid schemes.
And then they take all your money.
And fucking shit like that. And like, if you just pray about it and this and that, and you do. But I think some of them actually told people, hey, buy a house, to get involved in real estate, and fucking how to flip houses. So it's not all bad.
I mean, it's it's a different and more effective way of exploiting people, but yeah.
Well, it's kind of like sales seminars and real estate seminars.
Those are also exploiting people. But they're just not religious.
Not all the time. Not all the time. Fucking they got groups that real estate investors get in there, and then they fucking start hooking up to fucking buy houses and flipping houses.
I guess
they make money.
But I guess I'm more thinking about like all that self-help kind of crap. I'm just like, I'm really not into that.
I think the prosperity gospel stuff was encouraging Christians to make money, and they sold information of how to make money in their areas.
Well, because they probably figured it would benefit them, because it's like, if you make more money, then you can
get more
followers.
Money. Well, yeah, you get tithing more, and you're paying more. That's all. But most churches are like that. The Mormons are like that. They're tithing out to the Mormons, but the Mormons are successful, and they're also growing. Okay. Another successful Christian church that's growing is the Amish. All right, I wouldn't want to live like an Amish, but I respect it. They're just farm people, and they don't want any fucking electromagnetic fucking devices, and they don't want internet or anything. But they can grow cows and make cheese, and some of them they're getting trucks now, and they do stuff, and their numbers are actually growing. I think the same for the Mennonites. But they're not that negative. They're not very doom and gloom. They're just, to me, the only thing that would fucking kind of turn me off about them is that, or like, I don't want to join that church, is that they're anti-technology.
I'm not down with that.
So I'm not really down with it. I gotta have my technology, But other than that, they're basically
technology is an equalizer.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of churches don't like it.
Yeah. Well, evidently,
historically,
the Amish got pissed off because the feds kept raiding them over their fucking milk, and they registered to vote. And there's like, in the Amish homeland there was at Pennsylvania, they now have 250,000 new voters. They're all Amish, out of the fucking blue. Amish and Mennonite. That's enough to fucking flip an election. You pissed them off. They pissed them off. Don't raid them over milk. It's fucking stupid. If you want to drink milk that came out of a damn cow, you should go ahead. That's on you. You can drink it. It came out of a cow. You don't want to fucking... It's not like they're selling it to the mainstream public and shipping it to your fucking grocery store. They're just taking milk out of cows, selling it to each other, and there's nothing wrong with that. People have been doing it for thousands of years. But the feds kept raiding them, and they're pissed off now. I don't blame them. It's kind of because they're kind of like an Indian reservation. What, are you going to go in there and tell the Indians what they're going to do? No. but they're going to fuck with these old ancient German farmers is really all they are. But I respect their independence. I mean, let them have their own communities. They're not bothering anybody. They seem to be good people. They're not committing crimes, you know. And Mennonites too. So there's something to be said for some religions, you know what I mean? But I personally don't need them. I think some people do, but it's just not really for me. My religions are a little more fucking fluid, you know what I mean? Fucking, I'm more like I more believe in the Force, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like a genetic thing with me or something. I just never understood the appeal of them. Like, even from an early age, I'm like, why would you want to...
The thing that resonated
why would you want to do that?
The thing that resonated most with me was like fucking Friedrich Nietzsche's description of the will, which is kind of like the Force. Fucking and like, yeah, that's what it is. It's just that life grows, and it can grow in many different ways. It can be prey and it dies, or it be predator, or it can be in symbiosis. And the way he lays it out, the way all life expands, it's because it's more naturalistic, and that's something you can actually look in nature and see. You know what I mean? It's not. You don't have to fucking believe in something. In faith, you can actually see it happening. So what you see happening and the way you interpret it, that's more closer to reality than some spiritual pipe dream. You know. Well, if I do this and accept this, and then I'll go to heaven. I don't really care where I go after I die. Honestly, I've already had near-death experiences. It's not bad. Fucking, I know it's not going to be bad. You just move into the next damn universe. It's like an out-of-body experience.
Honestly, the only religion that seems like it's not obnoxious is Wicca. You know what I mean?
That could be obnoxious though too, because then you.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Wicca could be LARPing. Most of the time, it's just
sure,
LARPing.
but like they're not hurting anybody.
No,
they're not trying to force Wicca on other people. They're not showing up at my fucking doorstep wanting me to believe this, that, and the other thing.
Crystals and shit and crystals.
They're just going out in the woods and taking their clothes off and dancing. It's like, you know,
yeah,
whatever.
magic crystals
they're
and
not
shit.
hurting anybody.
Very Renaissance festival.
Yeah, they're not hurting anybody. Like I said, I don't care what people believe. The second you show up on my doorstep or you start passing laws like my religion says this and everyone else has to go along with, yeah, no. I don't think so. You don't see fucking Wiccans doing that. So
we live in a secular fucking.
That's the only religion.
We live in a secular republic, though. You know what I mean?
But, that's what I mean. But people's beliefs dictate their behaviors. You know, to a degree. So.
But you're complaining about people that are mostly dead.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
The boomers are dying off, and most of them are not very.
Do you know that there is a website?
Most of them are not really.
I think it's called boomerdeathclock.com.
Yeah.
And it's showing you like when.
Yeah.
It's kind of morbid, but it's also kind of funny.
Yeah,
like when they'll all be dead. It's gonna be a while still. Yeah. Just saying.
And not all of them in the boomer category are fucking religious.
Well, no,
zealots.
Of course not. We're just we're making a generalization.
But a lot of that came from that. Jen's traumatized from the Satanic Panic of the '80s. I thought it was fucking hilarious.
I thought it was hilarious too, but it's hilarious, but it's also kind of pitiful and sad. And it's pitiful and sad because there's still some people like that nowadays when you'd think that we would know better.
I was a fucking teenager.
I mean, that was a long time ago.
I was a teenager going through the Satanic Panic.
Yeah, me too.
Listening to heavy metal. And I knew that the whole fucking thing was trolling.
We all knew that.
That they're trolling the fuck out of these people.
We all knew that. The more they whined, the worse we got.
The more we trolled them. Yeah, trolling was some shit.
Yeah.
The devil, man.
We just thought it was funny.
Listen to the devil's music.
Like, I remember many years ago.
Play it backwards, man. Turn me on, man.
This was late 80s or early 90s. And my brother's friend stole a book from a bookstore by Bob Larson. If you don't know who Bob Larson is, he's probably... Is he dead now? I think his daughter has carried on his work, if you want to call it that. He was like an exorcist and evangelist kind of dude, and he was very, very big in the Satanic Panic scene. And he stole this book. I'm glad he didn't pay for it. I don't advocate stealing, but I'm just glad he didn't give this motherfucker any money. So he stole this book and he gave it to me, and I still have it somewhere. I don't remember where it's at, but it's in here. It's on my bookshelf someplace. And that shit was the funniest shit that I ever... I mean, I should read it to you sometime. You will die laughing. It is like the Satanic Panic, like in a nutshell. He has chapters about Dungeons and Dragons. He has chapters about death metal. He has chapters about all this stuff. And actually, if you remember, and I remember this, like, I think it was Spin Magazine, they did a whole big article where Bob Larson went on a tour bus with Slayer and, like, interviewed them. You know what I mean? And it was funny because he was trying to make it seem like they were just, like, these like satanic whatever, and, like, the dudes in Slayer were just, like, regular dudes, man. They're like, yeah, we just do this because, you know, our fans like it and we just think it's cool and all this other kind of stuff. They're not Satanists or anything like that, really. I mean, not in the way that Christians think of it. And it was just kind of their shtick, you know what I mean? But Larson is trying to paint them as just kind of like these fucking, and it's so fucking funny. And it's just so funny how clueless the dude is.
Yeah, either that or he knows. It's just that he's selling a product.
I've read a couple of his books. I don't think he knows. I think he really is that clueless. Like I said, he might be dead now.
No, somebody said he's 80. He's still alive.
He's okay. He's still alive. Because I knew his daughters. I saw something a couple years back where his daughters had carried, and they were also exorcists, I think, or something like that. And but the book I have, like I said, I should read it to you. You'll shit. It's so fucking funny. But yeah, so even back in the day, we knew that this was bullshit and thought it was hilarious. But like I said, it's just sad to me that there's still people with that mindset like around nowadays when it should have died out.
When some of that shit was on Geraldo and daytime television when I was a kid, Geraldo would have the victims of fucking satanic breeders and shit like that, and they would tell these wild ass stories. But shit, when I was a kid, I saw fucking poltergeist. My whole family did, you know. So I'm thinking that shit sounds, poltergeist sounds implausible as fuck. But then what she's saying, I was, that she was a satanic breeder. I was thinking, man, somebody might be doing that. I kind of thought that.
It's not impossible.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen, I'm not done.
It's not possible.
I'm saying, man, maybe that's actually happening, you know? But then the reason why I said, nah, this satanic panic is full of shit, is because they bring on dudes that would talk about fucking music. And they'd show Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, all the bands that I listened to. I knew all the fucking songs by heart. And they would misquoting and twisting everything about whatever song is in there. And as soon as I realized, I'm like, oh, no.
No, y'all are full of shit.
Yeah, these people are full of shit. They're making they're trying to make a satanic panic, you know. If you were to look at fucking, if in those days, if you had a religious person, look at an Iron Maiden album cover like fucking Number of the Beast or fucking Peace of Mind, they're going to think that that's some satanic shit. But if you actually listen to those bands and listen to the fucking lyrics, it's very English with a super heavy cultural Christian aspect to it. I mean, they're talking about fucking... Everything they're talking about comes from English literature. Even the song Number of the Beast, which is supposed to be satanic as hell, is about a dude who thought he saw a fucking satanic ritual in the night out in the woods. He thought he saw it. And that's it. It's just a story about a dude. He thought he saw that shit. It didn't have anything to do with fucking reality.
Well, of course it didn't.
Know. And and a lot of the stuff was actually kind of Christian. You know, they did the Song of the Ancient Mariner. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. There's a song about the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner was a Christian story about animal rights. That don't fucking kill the creatures that God has made. You should love all the creatures that God has made, even the ugly things that come out of the sea. You know, so that's all it is. It had a satanic aspect to it, but they didn't know the material. So they just attacked the way it looked.
I kind of feel like, I mean, us growing up in the goth scene and and all of that kind of shit, and you growing up partially in the metal scene too.
Partially metal, yeah.
It's just kind of like we understood all of that stuff for what it was. So when you see outsiders who don't know jack shit about the culture, the subculture, the context of it, they don't really listen to the lyrics, they don't know what they're referring to, and to listen to people that don't know jack shit about something act like they know about it is very, very funny.
And then I would trip the fuck out because the dude would be attacking Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, two of my favorite bands back in the days, but then would totally leave out Venom. And Venom was straight up satanic.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't even mention.
So they probably didn't.
They didn't know about Venom. Venom was a little bitty band. But the thing is that when you bought a Venom album, those dudes were not Satanists. They're selling you a horror album. It's like you watching The Evil Dead or something.
Right.
They're talking about stories happening in hell, and the fucking, the devil fucking and his demons are gonna fucking rise up out of the fucking hell and fucking in an army and take back heaven for their own. This is all storytelling, and even the lead singer of Venom years later, I didn't have access to it. We didn't have internet. You know what I mean? But when the internet came out, he would laugh. He says, "No, I don't believe in any of this. This is just like a movie."
That's what I mean, and I kind of feel like,
he's a character when he's doing that.
Yeah, like me coming from somebody that's like super into horror movies and has gotten like shit on for liking horror movies for a long time too. It's just kind of like especially back in the 80s. I think that something, and even maybe nowadays, like people that aren't into horror movies, like something they don't understand about horror fans is that horror fans don't want that to happen in real life.
No,
like we just watched Terrifier 3, for example. I would not want to see like an evil clown chop up a family on Christmas Eve in real life. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But when you see it in a movie, like you laugh at it, but it's just kind of like it's not the same. I don't think people understand like why people watch horror movies or what the appeal of it is. So they attribute, and because the people accusing are not that bright or not that creative or something,
they want to make money off of people who aren't bright,
which amounts to the same thing. Yeah. They kind of paint people that are into that kind of stuff as like depraved and all this other kind of stuff because they don't really understand why people watch that stuff or listen to that kind of music in the first place. It's not because they're depraved serial killers. That's absolutely not why. But I don't think because they're not into it and they don't know jack shit about it.
They don't know the culture of it.
Yeah, they don't have any context.
Yeah.
They're not involved in it. They just see it from the outside, and to them it seems weird or spooky or whatever, and they don't like.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's just
when you get a Venom album back in those days in the 80s, the way it looked and the songs and the lyrics and shit. A Christian might interpret that as that's somebody spreading a satanic message. They're true believers and followers of this. No, it was dudes putting together kind of like the record album equivalent of a horror movie.
Yeah.
You talked about satanic bands, and then they went out and fabricated one of what it would be like. It's all fantasy, though.
Yeah.
Those dudes don't believe that. They're not Satanists. They're a rock group. With that as an image, that's just the way they look, and that's the subject matter. Whenever you get into the Satan subject matter, though, when you're a band, you're now limited to that only. You can't branch out of that.
That's kind of the thing.
That's the thing. That was the problem with Venom. Venom couldn't sing about anything other than Satan and demons.
Yeah.
And werewolves, maybe, and vampires.
It does kind of box in your creativity.
It boxed them in.
Because all your fans are going to be like, why? Yeah. Why are you singing about this shit now?
If you never heard Venom, I recommend them. They sounded like Motorhead. They sounded like Motorhead, but satanic.
And who doesn't like Motorhead?
Motorhead was good. Good heavy rock
Everybody
band.
likes Motorhead.
Yeah. And that guy's name was Conrad. Conrad Lent.
It just occurred to me that is it because a lot of these really uptight Christians that make these kind of accusations are literalist.
Yeah.
So everything has to be exactly as it appears.
There's no symbolism.
There can't be any symbolism or
allegory or metaphor.
They don't understand like the deeper implications of it, or that's
why they're fundamentalists. They're taking
because everything is just
they're taking the Bible at its word, and they'll fucking and they'll brag about that. But
they don't understand like horror movie fans, people that are into death metal and stuff. You don't take that literally.
Everything in the Old Testament and the New Testament is not written in a historical format for the time. It's written in a religious format. There were other religions written in those times that were written like that too. The reader back in those days knew that they were dealing with a religious document. All right. Religions were big business back then.
Still are.
They still are. So, but the weird thing about it is that they say they're literalists and fundamentalists, but they aren't. Because when you can go through and you say, well, why is it, why haven't you cut off your right hand?
Why do you still eat shellfish?
Yeah, why are you? Well, yeah, because you said,
why are you mixing fabrics?
If you did something wrong, then cut off your hand. If you see sin, then pluck out your eye. Just stupid shit like that. There's all kinds of shit that if you were to take it literally, you'd be doing fucking weird ass shit. Mm-hmm. But none of it was ever really literal. None of this.
It's all cherry picking.
It was yeah. But none of those religious documents were literal. They were tales and stories to teach lessons, and then. Some of them have been so heavily edited, like the Pauline epistles, the Pauline material. That's the remnants of an older version of Christianity where Jesus was never born. He was God's son in the sky, sitting at his right hand at a throne, an archangel above Michael. And you could appeal and get to Jesus directly, and he would save you. He would save you from who? God. Because God was going to judge you by Mosaic law, the laws of Moses. And you really couldn't follow those laws because they sometimes involved human sacrifice, sacrificing the firstborn. Now, they evidently amended that later. But Christianity was imaginary, LARPing, savior, almost kind of Scientologyist, fucking, and, it's also like a very good example of evolution because everything's been harmonized and any problems have been ironed out over the centuries and the fucking 2,000 years that it's been around. But there's nothing really in there that directly relates to modern life. Not anymore. It's just because Christianity is really nothing more than a reenactment of the Jewish blood ritual of cleansing the tribe's blood using the blood of a sacred lamb, and using a scapegoat. That's all Jesus's sacrifice on the cross was, just the lamb. He is the lamb that washes away your sins, and Barabbas, who was set free, is the scapegoat. And if you accept that sin, then if you accept that sacrifice, then your sins are washed away, just like it would be in the other ritual, the blood ritual with the lamb. But this can go throughout time because it's the blood of a super angel. So you could fucking ask for his forgiveness and fucking you can become saved by him at any time in the future. So it's everlasting blood. It goes through dimensions. It goes through time. That's what they're talking about. That's what the crucifixion scene says. It's the scapegoat ritual. Ancients knew exactly what it was. But modern people don't know what it is.
Well, like I said, we've lost the historical.
Yeah, it's a mechanism by which Jewish people no longer have to follow the laws of Moses and can now follow the teachings of Jesus, which is chill the fuck out. Don't judge others.
Well, like I said, I kind of feel like that's why a lot of evangelical Christians maybe have a problem with horror, Halloween, anything like that, because they're very literalist. Yeah. This is how it looks on the surface, so that must be how it is. We're celebrating evil. We want the shit that happens in horror movies to really happen in real life. Like, they don't understand nuance. They don't understand anything like that. Maybe that's why a lot of Christian entertainment just sucks. Because they have that literalist mindset, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
John Gora says, I'd say horror entertainment helps people cope with trauma or prep for it. Yeah. I kind of feel like that's... I don't know if I'd say it's its main function. Like, some people just enjoy it. I just enjoy it, like, aesthetically. But it definitely is a stress reliever. It's weirdly comforting in a way. It's kind of fun to be... It's an adrenaline rush, but it's a safe adrenaline rush. It's the same reason that people ride roller coasters, like anything like that. Like, it's dangerous, but not really. Like, you're not really going to get hurt. Except on a roller coaster, you might actually get hurt if something goes horribly wrong. But you know what I mean? Like a horror movie, you're probably not going to be horribly hurt. But like I said, it's just a safe way of processing those emotions. So, there's obviously nothing wrong with it. And honestly, I know a lot of people into horror and everything like that. And most horror fans, 99.9% of horror fans are just like the nicest people ever because they get their negative emotions out that way, like safely. We get it out like by watching movies and shit like that. We don't inflict it on other people. We don't do that kind of shit. So, honestly, I've found in my experience, maybe I don't know if statistics bear this out or anything like that, but I've kind of found like people that are like into horror movies, into death metal, and anything like that that is seen as negative or anything like that by society at large, are generally a lot nicer and a lot better people than people pretending to be super religious and super pious and all that kind of nonsense. Yeah, because obviously they're putting on a facade for other people, which is sketchy in itself.
Yeah, Victor brought some up. Yeah, why do you spill your seed?
Right. You know, there's so much shit that's in the Bible that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
That nobody follows in their right mind anymore. And they just pick and choose what they want.
And there's contradictions in some places in the New Testament, like in the Pauline type stuff. The question is basically asked, if I'm in the house of a Roman and he serves me a dinner and the meat has been meat that was sacrificed to a Roman god, can I eat that? And the answer is well, because you're a Christian, you know those Roman gods are not true. So out of polite, so it's not really sacrificed to a real god. So you can go ahead and eat it. In other places it says, hell no, don't ever eat any meat that was sacrificed before another god.
Because God feels a little intimidated by those other gods.
Well, here's the thing. If you go back to the Old Testament, it says Yahweh, or Yahweh chose Israel. All right. God's other sons chose other fucking tribes. Like the Canaanites and the fucking Philistines and shit. Baal and Molech and those other gods. Now, it goes on in Genesis to say, do not sacrifice your children to Molech or to fucking Baal.
As if people...
Your firstborn are mine. Wait a minute, hold on, what? So it's not saying those other gods didn't exist. It's saying they did exist. Those were God's other sons. That's why the sons of God found the daughters of man to be beautiful, so they married them, and from them came the Nephilim. They're talking about demigods. That's the same thing out of the Roman system, where Zeus comes down, or fucking one of his other gods comes down, or Zeus comes down, screws some chick, and Hercules is born.
He changed the Nephilim. Swan or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Shower gold.
Yeah,
whatever the fuck
Hercules would have been a Nephilim, a giant, but or a Titan. Well, the Titans were actually the father gods to fucking Jupiter, and the Olympian gods, their ancestors were the Titans. But this is the same. It's just that the Jewish stuff was more of a hillbilly version of what was happening in Greece. It was the same system, a pantheon of gods. There wasn't just one god.
But it took a while to work all those kinks out.
They eventually made it monotheism. Kinda.
But there's still threads of pantheism in there, if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, because you got God in the garden with Eden, in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, and then a serpent is in there. Who the fuck is that? And then there's other angels saying, "Look, he's like us now." So there are other gods and demigods, and and the sons of God. So it's a pantheon.
TV Dragon says, you go back in time and show people Tom Hardy's back arch, they will either burn you at the stake or let you start a new religion. I would bet on the latter thing.
In Rome, they would give you a chariot.
They'd build a statue to that shit.
Yeah, they'd give you a chariot, and they would give you a triumph down the fucking Appian Way for showing them a picture of that back arch. And then the next thing you know, they would build a fucking huge marble statue of Tom Hardy's back arch. Yeah, and they try to somehow capture a mirror, the mirror effect in stone somehow, with his fucking camera.
I would love that. I'm still really impressed by that picture. I've never seen a back arch that severe.
Romans knew about the human physique.
It's really something.
They had to have worked out.
They would probably also be really impressed. I was.
Yeah. They definitely worked out. They said they did. And their statues of their athletes, definitely, they worked out. They were fucking jacked, some of those guys. People didn't believe it. They thought those were fucking idealized statues. But a German dude named fucking Sandow, Eugen Sandow was his name. He invented modern bodybuilding. He thought those were real. So he went out and worked out before they even had gym sets, really. And started to look like that. And he says, no. And he measured the proportions of the statues and everything, because some of the statues were a bit larger than life. And he said, no, this is possible. So the Romans were doing that, Romans and the Greeks. Bodybuilding.
Full Metal Nosferatu says, I've been told all my life I'm going to hell for having a cheeseburger on Friday. Catholic, eh? Yeah. You had to have fish on Fridays, because that somehow didn't count as meat.
Unless it's rats. Rats are also fish.
Yeah.
Don't you remember that?
Yep.
The church declared, because the peasants were they wanted to go to heaven. They didn't want to commit sin. They couldn't afford fish on Friday. They could only afford rats. That's what they normally ate, rat meat. So the Pope, in his fucking wisdom, and he went ahead and he declared all fish. He declared all rats as fish. So rats are fish.
Isn't that cool? Hey, you can just do that.
Yeah, you can eat fish or rat, because a rat is a fish on Friday.
It's like, y'all are cool. It's fine.
Yeah. You
eat all the rats you want.
Yeah, he saved a lot of souls. A lot of people went to heaven over that.
So silly. The fact that so much energy and intellectual brain power is expended on this crap is just like, that blows my mind. The last fun fact that I have about Walpurgis Night is that the Church of Satan was founded on Walpurgis Night on purpose in 1966 by Mr. Anton Szandor LaVey, who we did a show about a long time ago.
One of the best con men of all time.
And he says in the Satanic Bible that other than your own birthday, because obviously you're kind of your own god or whatever, so your own birthday is the most important thing. But Walpurgis Night is one of the most important Satanic holidays. And that's kind of like, spring equinox and all of that kind of stuff. And like I said, he picked that date specifically for its pagan associations. And in the modern day, the good old Satanic Temple, who are doing the Lord's work, and I say that facetiously, they actually celebrate kind of a form of it, but they celebrate more the Germanic Witches' Night, Hexennacht. And it is actually a holiday to honor people who were victimized by superstition, as in women who were burned as witches, and men who were hanged as witches and things like that. So that is a celebration that they do, the Satanic Temple does nowadays. Like I said, well aware of the historic connotations of the day. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to start a petition that we need to start celebrating Walpurgis Night in the United States. Because why should Germany and Scandinavia have all the fun? Why do they get to have 2 Halloweens? I also want 2 Halloweens.
I'm not worried about it.
1 Halloween is not enough.
Yeah.
Because Halloween is coming up, man.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. It's my favorite. It's my favorite holiday. Yeah. Full Metal Nosferatu said, raised Catholic against my will. Yeah. Atheist by choice. Yeah, I'm kind of lucky in the fact that I wasn't raised in a particular religion. My family was kind of half-assedly religious. I don't even know what denomination you'd call it, frankly. I was never taken to church as a child, except maybe once or twice when I was staying with aunts and uncles. Like, they took me and I didn't make an impression. But, I was given like little books of Bible stories and shit like that by various relatives over the years. But like I said, it didn't really. So I'm kind of glad that I wasn't raised with that I had to like get over when I was older.
I'm a Christian mythicist. All right. I like mythology. I think Christianity is another mythology. I like this.
Well, yeah, it's just like, I'm the same. It's like, I find mythology really interesting.
And the thing is that when you tell a lay person, I'm in mythology, you go, well, it's not true. No, mythology is very true. It's very true. Now, it's not historically true. It's spiritually true. But the thing is that some of the stuff in the Bible is no, it's not spiritually true any longer. Because the cultures that thought that way no longer exist. Most of that stuff is actually very early farm life. You know what I mean? Agricultural, very early agricultural type stuff is happening in that. They're honoring fucking gods in the Old Testament, especially. They're honoring gods. They're honoring people that used to be gods in their old system, and they're mentioned, like Esau. He was hairy, red and hairy. Esau is actually just a retelling of another fucking Canaanite god, who like a sun god. Is what they're talking about. So it's like a greatest hits album. They keep fucking mentioning all the old gods of their ancestors. They just kind of demoted them into characters in the Old Testament many times. Depends on what book.
And it made a lot more sense the way they lived back then.
Yeah, like they said, no, don't throw that out. Don't throw that out. That's good. Fucking we've been believing that. Okay, well, okay. Esau is this guy. Okay, yeah, okay. So you saved Esau. So that's all they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, from a modern standpoint, it doesn't really make any sense because the
cultural
it makes no
context
sense. Is completely different.
Yeah,
that's why a lot of the shit in the Bible
it doesn't matter anymore.
And that's why you can interpret it however you fucking want to, because it's so vague.
Yeah,
and it's referring to things that don't really exist anymore.
Yeah,
so you can kind of read whatever you want to in it.
Yeah.
The
New Testament's a little bit more modern, but shit, if you want to be really modern, just become a Mormon. That shit was written in the 1800s. Okay.
Although that's also
it's wild as fuck.
Pretty Christian, but they added their own weird shit onto it.
It's wild as fuck. But the thing is that the shit that's in the Book of Mormon is no more wild than the shit that's in the New Testament.
It's not weirder.
It's all about the same.
It's not weirder. It's just that we're used to hearing the Christian shit because you've grown up hearing it your whole life, so it's not weird. So when you hear the Mormon shit, you're like, "Whoa, that's weird," but it's really not.
Yeah, that's not. That couldn't have
from an objective standpoint.
That couldn't have happened.
It's not any weirder.
That couldn't have happened. That was only in the 1800s. You know what I mean? Like that was just yesterday. Fucking when they're talking about the Jesus, they're saying that he only exists in the time of the fucking when they're writing those the Gospels, the 4 Gospels, and they're not all the same. The stories are different, each one. There's 4 of them, and they're also not all the same age. Mark is the oldest one. All right. John is the newest one. All right. And there's probably about 150 years there in between all those 4. But they were put together, so there's always 4. There was more of them, but they're not included in the canon. They got threw those out. They left 4 Gospels of Jesus, 4 different versions of his storyline, and they get wilder as they go. Okay. Fucking Mark doesn't even end with him rising up and surviving the crucifixion, going to hell. No ascension. He's just crucified. That's it. And then it's told again, because so they've added that. Okay. But what I was getting at with the reason why there are 4 of them, you would think, well, you say, well, that was the best ones. They're the most accurate ones. No, there's 4 of them because there's 4 corners of the fucking earth.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's it.
The thing went out.
What went out?
It just turned off.
Oh yeah, weird. Yeah.
It was off earlier too.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been off.
You're getting all. No, it hasn't been off. It just went off.
So I was getting excited.
Yeah, your poltergeist turned that shit off.
Yeah.
It was off when I came in here this morning too.
Yeah.
I don't know why. All my lights were fucked up. I don't know if maybe the power, clicked off last night. Although the fan stayed on.
I don't know why that other one isn't turning on.
Weird.
There you go.
Full Metal Nosferatu says churches say doing yoga, which I practice, is an act of evil. What the fuck? How?
Yeah.
I've heard that also.
That shit's a cult because it doesn't come. It's not from the West. Anything from the East is a cult. Yeah.
Anything we don't understand is de facto evil.
It's Chinese, man. They got fucking dragons. It tells you right in the New Testament, fucking in Revelations, that Jesus is gonna fight the dragon, throw the dragon into the fucking abyss.
Dragons started yoga.
Yeah. The thing is,
the devil.
The thing is, the dragon they're talking about is fucking Tiamat. All right, who was the Sumerian creation dragon.
Yeah.
That's all they're talking about. So but Marduk killed the fucking Tiamat and made the universe out of the body of Tiamat. So they're talking. Whoever wrote that figured you knew the story of Sumerian stories of the Tiamat, or fucking Sumerian. No, what am I thinking of? They were ancient Persian shit. Yeah. I guess it might have been Sumerian. But no. Persian, Sumerian, too. What religion was that? Anyway, it doesn't matter. In the story, the act of throwing Tiamat into the abyss is the same as saying God destroys reality. So we only live in a spiritual world after that, and a New Jerusalem. on the earth somehow. But they couldn't really fucking think of anything outside the earth. You could destroy the fuck, because it couldn't be in heaven, because heaven was for God only and angels. This whole going to heaven thing is kind of a fucking misnomer. They were trying to get salvation. I think some people went to heaven, but most people didn't. That's why you have things like purgatory and all that.
We gotta have somewhere to put all these people.
They weren't quite sure where you went after you died.
All these waiting rooms.
You just didn't want to go to hell. You didn't want to go to hell. That's what they were avoiding.
They put everybody in these like purgatorial train stations or something.
Place where you could
or
chill
doctors'
out.
waiting rooms.
Right. Well, in Revelations, which is not a real prophecy, okay. Many of the Christian churches don't have it. It's not in the Greek Orthodox. It's not in the Egyptian Coptic. They don't have it. But God's chosen, saved people end up in a New Jerusalem. It's like a big fucking... And they reign over the earth. But they don't have bodies anymore. They have a new body, like a spiritual body. So they're saying the earth is now in another dimension. Kind of like a heaven. And it was supposed to be kind of like a restoration of Eden, because we lost Eden. So the idea was that God was going to put you like in a new Eden, but it's in another dimension. But it's not heaven. Not really. It's not the same heaven where angels and God are.
Because they don't want you in there stinking up the place, leaving your dirty socks everywhere.
According to the fucking lore and the stories, heaven was only for God and angels. Humans weren't supposed to be in there. But the Old Testament said that some people could go, because I think Moses was taken to heaven. Who else was? I think Methuselah might have been just taken to heaven. Or they read into the story. It says he lived for a certain amount of years, like 976 years, and then after that he walked with God. So that was interpreted as that he didn't die, that he was taken to heaven while he was alive.
That doesn't mean that. That means that maybe God came down and like chilled down the street and they went to a coffee shop or something, and then God fucked off.
No, because they gave how many years he lived. So that means that he died. And then he walked with God.
Okay.
All right. I interpret that as that he lived a certain amount of years and then he died and went to heaven. But some people would say that no.
You're okay.
He never died. He just lived 900 something years and then fucking walked with God. He went to heaven. Mm-hmm. Where God's version of heaven. That's hell of a promotion.
Well, yeah, like you said, only a few people get to do that.
Yeah,
God doesn't want people.
The Old Testament.
He doesn't want roommates.
The Old Testament said most people go to Sheol, the grave. So there's no salvation in it. It's not the same as damnation, though. It's just the grave.
Yeah, you're just laying there.
Which I guess is non-existence.
Right.
Yeah.
So at least they got
and that was supposed
part,
to be. Right? Yeah, and that was supposed to be kind of. I think that might have been a good thing. It was just non-existence.
But everybody got to feel fucking special, like you're going to be the one.
The Christians wanted to evoke eternal life in an afterlife. And that's not really talked about in the Old Testament.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's a slightly newer.
That's a newer concept.
Interpolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, Victor said Jehovah's Witnesses believe only 144,000 people get to go to heaven. Yeah, that's right.
That's in a certain part of...
I knew a couple Jehovah's Witnesses, yeah.
Yeah, that's in... That 144,000 is in the New Testament. I explained that to fucking Saad, who a friend of mine is in Saudi Arabia. And I said, you have to... Islam is inclusive. Everybody was born a Muslim. Even if you're not a Muslim, you're supposed to be... When you become a Muslim, you revert back to Muslim. Because they say you're supposed to be born Muslim. Everybody basically goes to heaven if you're Muslim. Christians go to heaven. Jews can go to heaven if they're fucking good with God. That's basically what they said. Nice. When I told Saad, says no, Christianity is not like that. Christianity is exclusive. It says only 144,000 are going to heaven.
Or the Jehovah's Witnesses say that.
No, but it says that in all the Bibles.
Yeah,
144,000 go. Now it doesn't say just 144,000 go. There's a passage where it says 144,000 go. You can interpret it a couple different ways. Did 144,000 go at that time? Or is 144,000 the total number of souls and human souls in heaven? It's not really, you don't really know. But Christianity is an exclusive religion. Okay? You got like basically Christian commandos that are going to go with all this shit, and they will surely be chosen to be that 144,000 because they're the elites. Elite Christian practitioners.
Like I said, everybody, like a lot of people have main character syndrome, right? And they kind of feel like they're going to be the special one.
But it makes
144,000 people is not that many.
But it makes sense because most of the New Testament is about how most other Christians are heretics. That's what most of it is about.
It's like a little us versus them.
Circle
jerk is what it is.
Most of the Pauline material in the Old Testament is about we have our Savior and our first supper.
Like we are so much better
than our
you guys.
Father, not their supper and not their Savior. Because they're talking about that's another version of Christianity and it's not real.
Yeah, like I said, everybody likes to be special and better than other people.
Yeah, there was never just one denomination of Christianity. It's from the very beginning. It was a bunch of different groups, all saying they were the chosen ones. That's what they're talking about. And they're fucking geeking out like fucking comic book geeks about what's canon and what isn't canon. Why is that not in the Bible? Why is that in your Bible? That book's not supposed to be in there. It's not in ours.
It's exactly the same thing.
That's not Star Wars.
Yeah.
Disney shit, that's not fucking Star Wars. Real Star Wars was the fucking original trilogy.
Not to denigrate either
That's what they're doing.
I'm just saying it's exactly the same thing.
That's exactly the same thing. Fucking that's not Superman. Fucking...
They're arguing over mythology. Which, like I said, people can do that. It's fine. I do it
That's
too.
what they're doing.
But that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Don't elevate it by thinking it's something, oh, this one's real. No, it's not.
You know that only Chris Reeves' Superman is Superman. If it's not Chris Reeves, it's not Superman. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, Chris Reeves is Superman. If he's not starring in a role, that's not really Superman.
Well, you got so used to seeing.
Because I grew up with Chris Reeves. Well, they were doing the same thing. They were so used to their...
Change is hard for people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Chris Reeves is fucking Superman.
I mean, he was probably the best Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the one that most embodied the character, I think. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. He
like
had
I
the
said,
look, the fucking
that
attitude.
could be just because I grew up with that too.
He was square as fuck, and Superman was square.
Yeah.
You know, fucking hell yeah.
Yeah. Victor says the Jehovah's Witnesses say 144,000 from the time Jesus died. Only the anointed ones go to heaven. The rest stay here on the new heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
In the jeweled city, the New Jerusalem, that type of deal.
Ooh, like Emerald City from the Witchcraft. Senor Stick said, Jenny, is your top green. It's kind of more blue, actually. It's kind of bluish.
Now,
the color doesn't look right on the...
In the Latter-day Saints, you know, the Mormons, they've taken it even further. That you could be such a good Christian that God promotes you to a God and you can have your own world to be God over that world. You get your
whole ass planet.
So God can make you... That's leveling the fuck up. Where you can go from just Mormon to God in another universe.
That sounds like too much work.
Yeah, but you become a god, though. He makes you a god.
Yeah, but what do I got to do, though?
Sit on a throne. Judge some shit. Throw some lightning bolts.
Sounds like too much work.
Flood shit. You can flood something. Part seas. You can do anything you want.
I mean, if there was a heaven, which there's not, I just want to go there and lounge, man. Yeah. Eat snacks, not get fat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to, do shit. Come on. That sounds lame. I got to do shit down here.
Yeah.
I just want to rest.
All right, Jen, let's go ahead and shut it down. We've been on for over 3 hours.
Yeah, it's almost 11.
It's been a good show.
All right, yeah.
We're going to see them Friday.
Yeah, Friday. Okay, so Friday night. Oh, we got to go to Memento Friday night.
Yeah.
So, should we start the show earlier? Or, I don't know.
No, we'll just end it early.
We'll think about it, yeah. Because, we're going to Memento Mori on Friday night at the new place. This is the first one at the new place. So we'll probably have to leave before 9 o'clock. So we might have to do a shorter sidetrack show on Friday, but we will still do one. So like I said, we might start earlier. We'll talk about it tomorrow or whatever. But yeah, so hopefully you guys can drop by and hang out with us again on Friday night. Thank you everybody for stopping by this evening. Thank you for your memberships and all of the stuff that you did. And we will see you guys again on Friday night. Good